Hi everyone, welcome in. Oh my goodness. Okay, there we go. How are we all doing today? I hope we're doing well. We're gonna continue with Our Life Beating It Always, Baxter's DLC. Hopefully we finish it. I started at 11 today because I want to get this done just in case it's like 3 hours, because Gil gets home at like 2:30 usually. So yeah, I'm trying to make sure we get this done. Before we start, yesterday when I streamed, I talked about Love Island. Guess who fucking left? Sean. Everybody was sad. That felt fake. It felt fake. I felt so fake. I was happy though. That's all that matters. I'm happy. But yeah, should have been Kinsey and Melanie next. Should be, hopefully. You never know. Okay, let's get back into this. You felt a warm, fuzzy feeling spread through your body as Scott began to whisper rapidly in Jude's ear, like interrogating him about what was going on and where the cake had come from. It was too far away for you to tell what was said, but you didn't need to be in earshot to know that Scott was floored. You sagged in your seat with relief, your long night's effort vindicated. News of the groom's cake spread like a wave through the room, people murmuring excitedly to one another, with some approving nods and expressions of admiration thrown in. At his husband's side, Jude was looking nowhere but at Scott's face. Eyes filled with emotion, he wrapped an arm around Scott's waist and then leaned into each other in a sidelong embrace. A fresh knife had been provided for the second cake, and Scott eagerly called the photographer back over to snap some fresh shots, both of the whole cake and then from them cutting it. This time, as the incision was made, Jude addressed the onlookers. "This is the last cake, I swear." Some laughter, and then the room devolved into chatter as people began lining up in front of the tabletop for their dessert. You and your friends, being close by, got there early. The couple were handing out slices to everyone on little side plates. Jude took care of the tiered cake while Scott was still fawning over the bright red controller even as he cut into it. At the front of the line, you had the option of taking a slice from the chocolate vanilla tiered cake, the carrot cake of your own making, or, to Cove's delight, a piece of both. You went for the tiered cake. "I don't like carrots." "That's what I'm having too. Doesn't it look so good? I know the decorations don't have anything to do with how it tastes, but it feels like it does." Then she stammered apologetically, flushing a little. I mean, that's not to say that your cake doesn't look nice too. You can tell a lot of hard work went into it, and Scott and Jude were both so happy with how it turned out." "It was really kind of you to do that for them. Thank you. I just like chocolate cake." "It's okay, Randy. I like this one too. I want vanilla, please. Give me the vanilla tier." When everyone was in their seats again, you had an unexpected visitor. Baxter had squeezed his way past the line for dessert and over to your table. His hand hovered at the back of your chair. "Oh?" "Sup?" "Hi." Hey." Cove's greeting was stilted and awkward. There simply hadn't been time before for him to get used to Baxter's presence, and he was never quite used to it to begin with. "The gang's all here." "It's been a while, Cove. Good evening, everyone. Are we enjoying ourselves?" Your group exchanged glances amongst themselves, as if to decide who would go first. "It's nice." Cove swallowed his mouth full of cake and tried again. "It's been pretty nice, yeah." Miranda threw her hands in mock exasperation, her body language having become a lot more flamboyant ever since the wine she'd had with the main course. "Don't worry, Baxter. I think it's the best wedding I've ever been to." Terry nodded along as she spoke, tilting his chair up on its hind legs with his arm draped over the back of it. "It's been amazing. You brought your A game today, B-Man." Baxter's eyes twinkled at the mention of his old moniker, and it looked like the professional here was suppressing a laugh to boot. "I'm afraid that joke gets a C-, Terry." "A? No, but seriously, man, it's been a blast." That's what, 2 successful events you've organized for Miranda's family already? You should become the official party planner for the Eckerts. That could work. At least I know who to come to when Terry and I, need help. Exactly. Wait a minute. The front legs of Terry's chair hit the floor with a thunk. As Miranda waited for her boyfriend's brain to catch up with the conversation, she reached for her glass and took another swig of wine. She's getting wine drunk. Terry looked like he was trying to solve an extremely difficult math problem, all power of language having evaporated. Miranda simply patted his leg, looked into his eyes, and smiled sweetly. You let out a silent shout in your head, not wanting to interrupt whatever moment the two were now having. Miranda hadn't proposed at her brother's wedding, but it was a hell of a hint. Baxter put a finger thoughtfully to his lips, fighting to hide away the corners of his mouth were curling upwards. Perhaps I could consider introducing a loyalty card system? I certainly appreciate a returning customer. Miranda had now laced her fingers together with Terry's, who was still unresponsive to external stimuli. Cove giggled and leaned in to speak quietly to you. I wasn't here for a week. What happened? A lot. You didn't get a chance to elaborate. I was like, who the hell is this? But that's Jude and Scott. Baxter, Princeton, I was looking for you. I know what you did. Oh, what'd we do? Besides the cake. Scott had a healthy flush to his face, his eyes bright and enthusiastic. It didn't match the almost sinister choice of words. Jude appeared at his husband's right elbow. You made that cake? Yep, last night. Scott's eyebrows and voice rose in unison, his tone modulating a few octaves upwards in incredulousness. Last night? You can't be serious. What were you thinking? You and Baxter nearly fell over each other trying to assure Scott that it hadn't been too much trouble, that you'd volunteered your time, and besides, you were both old hands at baking by now. One of the corners of your eye, you noticed Cove paying attention, a look of comprehension dawning on his face. The source of your earlier agitation had finally been revealed. I was agitated earlier? Dang. I don't remember that. With enough reassurance for the pair of you, Scott's concern was mollified enough for him to round his way back to thanking you again. It was a highlight of the day, honestly. You're too kind, Scott. It's been more than worthwhile. As long as you're satisfied, I couldn't be happier. Yeah, you're welcome, Mr. and Mr. Adam. Thanks. It was just perfect. The cake, the ceremony. His voice was getting strained with emotion, and he broke off in favor of taking Jude's hand again. We won't forget it. Right, Grant? A vigorous shake of his head from Grant. Cool, well. Here Jude reached over and clapped a hand on Baxter's shoulder. For real, you made this happen. Thank you. Thank you all. Oh, sorry, that was wrong. Thank you all. There was another round of you're welcomes and don't mention it before Baxter made his excuses and promptly vanished. Jude watched him leave, arms folded. Hey, Princeton, it's been a rough week with everything between you and him. You put it aside and got things done for sure, but I'm sorry. It was big of you to hang in there. It means a lot to hear you say that. It doesn't matter now. If anything, I'm glad it went like this. It was worth it in the end, that's what counts. I still care about him, even with the way he acts. You sighed and shook your head. Difficult was about right. You didn't respond, merely glancing down. You know what? I still care about him. That's Baby Boo. That's about old Baby Boo right there. Jude whistled and Scott elbowed him in the side. Jude gave his wedding reception a glance with new eyes. We should go. The real dancing started, and he owes me a rematch. A rematch in dancing? Scott tutted, cocking his hip. It's not going to make any difference, Jude, but I'll humor you since it's your wedding day. It's your wedding day, too. Those two had made a game, a competitive one at that, even out of dancing together. No one would get in the way of that. The couple joyfully made a break for the dance floor, hand in hand. After a second or so, Miranda wiped a few chocolate cake crumbs from around her mouth and got to her feet, holding out her hand to Terry. She's so cute. I love Miranda. You know, we could dance, too. Terry placed his palm on top of Miranda's and sprang out of his chest. Yes, let's show those clowns what 10 years of birthday parties look like. How about you, Cove? The pair of them turned their puppy dog eyes over to Cove, who was somehow still chewing. He shook his head and swallowed. I'm good. I'll stay here and watch, if that's okay. Sure. Princeton? Count me in. You nodded, getting up to join them. Dancing seemed like fun. I think I'll pass too. You have fun though. You shake your head. That'd be too much. You know what? Let's dance. You waved goodbye to Cove and ran off to the center of the space. A large number of Scott and Jude's friends and relations were already there, shaking it enthusiastically. They were shaking it. Oh my gosh. You felt the sugar in your blood like a buzz, the music becoming a pulse that merged with the beat of your heart. It was much more intense and energetic than the groom's initial two-step had been. The ballroom had been swiftly left behind for what was essentially a miniature disco. Scott and Jude bounced their way over to the three of you. They laughed incredulously as Terry and Randy busted not merely one, but several moves, other dancers stopping to whistle and cheer them on. Good for them. The fill competition was soon forgotten about, while Terry and Miranda started doing slightly tipsy laps on the floor together. You stayed behind and hopped around with Scott and Jude. You couldn't help but spare a thought to whoever was organizing the music. As the final triumphant chorus of pop-punk ballad blended into the opening bars of the hip-hop track. Is this me and Gil's wedding? Oh my god. Whoever it was had obviously known their audience. You hadn't heard some of this music in years. Midway through Randy and her brother-in-law doing an impromptu rendition of the Macarena, you glanced over to where Cove was sitting. He gave a cheerful little wave, perfectly content to stay where he was. In this glass palace on top of the world, the people celebrated the evening away. A few early stars, like curious children, began to poke their heads out. The time moved for you in strange increments, moments and colors running together like globs of paint. You counted the minutes by the measure of jazz chords and camera flashes and laughter. You remembered looking around for him at times, trying to catch a glimpse through the shifting masses of bodies, eyes peeled for that telltale mop of grayish black. I thought his hair was black. Did he not dye it recently? But as you did, Baxter was visible only in short snatches. The back of his head over someone's shoulder, half a face turned to speak to a colleague, a pair of eyes reflected in a window. His presence was like a wisp of insubstantial smoke. He had become a shadow, easily forgotten yet always there. Hours passed until... You were sitting in the lobby with the others to send the couple off. It was funny, you thought. For the days of effort you put in, it was all over so quickly. Scott and Jude were doing the rounds one last time, expressing their heartfelt appreciation to people for coming. They hadn't stopped holding hands since the dancing began. That's cute. A few moments later, you were waving from front steps as they got in the sparkling car and drove off. The splash of red sped away in an instant, carrying them to their new life together. Honeymoon? Where are they going, do you think? The Bahamas? The majority of the guests made themselves scarce shortly afterwards, heading down to the parking garage en masse or getting into taxis. You stayed behind, together with Scott and Jude's relations. Saying that just sounds so weird. Relations. The party portion of the party might have finished, but someone had to clean up afterwards. Yeah, that's not our job. It's not our job. You leaned against the wall of the elevator on the way back to the hall, half tired, half relieved. One good thing about the event being over was that you didn't have to worry about it anymore. The doors opened once again and you stepped out into the wedding hall. Cole, Miranda, and Terry were at the dining tables, busily stripping them down. Over here! You were beckoned to join them, and soon you were scooping up garbage and folding tablecloths in earnest. It was almost a cliche at this point, but you had once again found yourself recalling a similar occasion years before. It was just like when you stayed behind to clear up after Miranda's birthday party. It had felt the same way then, the strange mix of emptiness and satisfaction. Casting your eyes around the room, you realized that wasn't the only common thread. Like before, there was one member of your ragtag group who wasn't present. Baxter was down on the opposite end of the room, still rushing to and fro between various groups of staff, keeping himself occupied. You decided not to get in his way, not while he was busy. The moment would come eventually. You'd been hoping to spend some time together. The wedding might be over, but you still wanted to dance. You needed to talk, now the big event was done with. Someone needed to thank him for all his part in this. It would have made you sad to think he was being left out. I want to spend time together. You resigned yourself to waiting. The trouble was, it took a lot longer than you anticipated. Once all the trash had been cleared away, he had started vacuuming the floors. How did he find that? Why is he vacuuming? Is that his job? You know what? I wouldn't know. I'm not a wedding planner. I don't plan parties either. Not anymore. Not anymore. And when you finished the decorations, he was in the middle of moving stacks of chairs over to the elevators. He passed close by as you were beginning to pack the wedding cakes. You called out to him, but all that you got was a perfunctory smile and the tilt of his head before he sped away again. Your heart sank as you turned back to what was left of the groom's cake, which you were slicing to pack into storage container. He hadn't spoken to you since that one time during the reception. It couldn't be a coincidence. For some reason or another, he had been avoiding all of you, or maybe you specifically. It was getting kind of ridiculous. There was almost nobody in the room, but now it was you, Cove, Miranda, and Terry, some employees from the building itself, and Baxter. Everyone else had gone. Time was running out. If he left before you'd had a chance to speak, there was no knowing whether you'd get another. Just text him. What do you mean? You might never see him again. You looked down at the cake that you made, the last evidence of your collaboration, maybe even your friendship, and you were cutting it into pieces and putting it in a box. How symbolic. You wouldn't be put through the same thing again. You wouldn't. You slumped in your seat, no longer able to starve off the melancholic feeling in your gut, a dull throb of old pain. Was it always going to be this way? Ache a break? The sound of Miranda's voice pulled you out of your mental quagmire. You'd been so focused on Baxter's usual strangeness that you hadn't registered her talking. One look at the surprise on her face was enough for Maria to know you'd been a million miles away. She tapped the table in front of you. I can finish up here, Princeton. You've been going for ages, and you were up all night, too. Her wide eyes were worried when you looked up into them, and there was a slight pinch in her forehead. Yeah, you should take it easy. Terry's head popped into view Terry's head popped into view from behind Miranda, his expression of concern an exact replica of hers. It was so cute the way they had gradually taken on each other's mannerisms over the years. Leave something for Cove to do for once. He's gotta earn that 5th slice of cake. There was a yelp of indignation. Last but not least, Cove made his appearance over Terry's shoulder. The sight of the three of them lined up in height order that was comical. Cove's face was a little pouty, his tone defensive. It wasn't like I didn't want to help out, Terry. Besides, it wouldn't be my 5th. It would be... let's see. He trailed off, his gaze drifting up to one side as he silently counted on his fingers. As a unit, Terry and Miranda rolled their eyes, seeming to realize his mistake. Cove dropped his hands. Anyway... They're right about the break, Princeton. You can leave the rest up me, okay? Oh? At this, Miranda pulled up a chair next to yours and sat down. Leave it all to you, Cove? That's so nice. Huh? Wow, thanks for offering, buddy. It's been such a long day after all. Terry stretched wide and made a ridiculously exaggerated yawning sound before plopping down into Miranda's lap and putting an arm around her shoulder. They both grinned at Cove with all their teeth. I didn't mean that. Stifling a laugh, you got up to leave. Your friends were probably right. You need to give the wedding work a rest. You had other things on your mind anyway. You patted Cove sympathetically on the shoulder as you headed for the far end of the wedding hall, in the direction of a certain someone. Oh, he's frowning like a little kitty again. For the past half hour or so, Baxter had visibly struggled to stay preoccupied. Almost nobody remained for him to give instructions to. There were no more chairs to stack or tables to clear. But now he resorted to standing with his back turned and his arms folded, gazing out over the city through the enormous windows and trying his best to look deep in thought. You weren't fooled, though. It was about time you put him out of his misery. You approached him from behind and softly called his name. Baxter? He stiffened at the sound, shoulders tensing. For a few seconds he was frozen. Then all at once Baxter spun around and faced you, that perennial smile fixed firmly in place. Oh, good evening again, Princeton. Is everything all right with the cleanup? It's going fine. The others are handling the last couple of things. I see. It's good everything is in hand with respect to tidying up. You've been a great help. That didn't bode well. Baxter was amicable as ever, but his body language was closed off. His tone light in a way that you'd long ago learned was his way of establishing a sense of distance. You inched a little closer, expressing your intent to stay right where you were. His conversation wasn't over with pleasantry. The slight hunch returned to his shoulders. Well, since I have you for a minute, I wanted to mention it earlier. But there wasn't a convenient moment. Your outfit. You look wonderful, Princeton. He likes me. You really do pull off a suit like a few people I've met. What? You really do pull off a suit like a few people I've met. Okay. What a sentence. Though I guess it shouldn't be a surprise at this point. It was true years ago, and it is even more so now. He was talking quietly, his eyes never coming to settle in one place for long. In spite of all the compliments, you found that it all washed over you without making much of an impression. More than anything, you were disappointed. Baxter was deflecting, and doing so in the only way he knew how. It might have been funny to you once. I won't keep you any longer. I'm sure you'd appreciate a chance to relax after a tiring week. Where'd he go? No! Before you could react, he was stepping away from the window. In an instant, he was in line with you. In another, he had passed. You knew how this whole song and dance went. He led you through it once before. You tried your hardest, but if Baxter wasn't willing to meet you halfway, then there was nothing to be done. It's because I picked some wrong options, probably. He decided to walk out on you yet again, step by measured step, and then heard a long, drawn-out exhale. Baxter had stopped after a few paces, his back to you. You saw a hand come up to pinch the bridge of his nose. Baxter turned slightly, glancing over his shoulder so his gaze met yours. You didn't say anything, you didn't dare to, like he was a wild animal at risk of being spooked. He closed his eyes for a few seconds and breathed, in and out. You blinked, and then he was coming back in your direction, his face set in a determined expression. He stopped a few feet from where you stood, the heels of his dress shoes snapping together. I'm sorry, Princeton. You must think I'm avoiding you deliberately. I do think that, actually. You made a kind of hybrid shrugging, nodding gesture to indicate that, yeah, you'd gotten that feeling. It was hard to miss. He made a noise that was one part laugh, another part sigh. Of course I am. My hope was that you wouldn't notice. What you don't know won't hurt you and all that. Avoiding people is hurtful no matter what. Really, Baxter? Why would you think I wouldn't notice? You folded your arms and leveled an unimpressed stare. You were speechless. Avoiding people is hurtful no matter what. I know. Many things can be painful without you even realizing it. And since that plan is dashed, I wouldn't want you to get the wrong impression about why. It isn't your fault. I haven't forgotten everything that happened last night. It's only this highly specific situation that has reawakened my retinence? You might say. I just haven't seen that word before. What about it? Baxter silently stared over the expansive city for a while, as if collecting his thoughts. Then he finally spoke to you, really spoke to you, as two people who knew each other with no pretenses in between. It's hard not to feel nostalgic this past week. We've had quite a stroll down memory lane. Sometimes by happenstance, sometimes because I went out of my way to do so. I have fond memories of those days in Sunset Bird. Treasured memories. Like most treasures, there's things to be taken out and admired from time to time and then put away again. Though some are too delicate for even that. They should never be touched. He was tacking mostly to his shoes. His hands had snuck into his pockets in an uncharacteristically timid gesture. This evening is a reprise of something I never wish to relive. And that is? His voice was soft, plaintive. There was an ache in it. That party was wonderful. The party planner appreciation party. Not remembering the whole fucking name. Oh, he remembered it too. It has been so long since I'd known what it was like to be included. To be around people who refuse to let you be left out, no matter how hard you try to weasel out of it. Terry, Miranda, and Cove were too kind, but it was your gestures specifically that are the heart of this matter. He laughed then. A nervous, gasping thing, and pressed a hand instinctively to his chest. Here's the truth. If you didn't ask me to dance again, in the after hours of another event we helped create like you did then, it would have broken my heart. That would mean definitively that I lost what we had. Baxter's tone shook. His hand dropped to his side, where it balled into a fist. The air around you was very still. But if you did ask, it would be more painful, because that would mean... Baxter struggled to put his deepest feelings to words. The last attempt died off, but he squared his shoulders and forced himself to get it out. You mean even after everything, you hadn't let me go. You accepted me still. That you always would have. That I should have believed that all along. That the only thing I've done was hurt you and myself of my own accord. Yeah, that's exactly what you've done. There was a pain to his words that shocked you to hear. Though by now you would never have made the mistake of thinking he lacked emotion, Baxter still so rarely displayed this kind of naked vulnerability. Baxter tucked his face away from you. It's horrible. I didn't want to know one way or the other. I'm fairly pathetic, you understand. That truly was the core of it. Baxter couldn't let himself be happy no matter what. He was scared to hope and too ashamed of himself to try. Baxter, I came here to ask you to dance. So is it too late to ask for that dance? You're not pathetic, Baxter. Yeah, talking about how pathetic you are is pretty pathetic. Well, I'm still here. You have the answer. I feel like that was the wrong choice, but I'm gonna pick what I'm gonna pick. He didn't have anything to say to that. His brows pinched further. There was a brief pause, and then Baxter raised his head. There was a faint sheen to his eyes. He seemed to be searching your face for a while, like he was trying with all his might to glean your thoughts. After another heavy pause, he found more he wanted to tell you. Princeton, I know I hurt you. I always have. But awareness and acknowledgement mean nothing. I haven't made attempts to actually make you feel better. From the moment you walked into the restaurant, my actions were nothing but a self-preservation and damage control, and occasionally reminiscing to the extent I was pleased with. Am I getting rejected again? Yes, I had a professional commitment not to let personal matters impede the work that needed to be done, but my distancing went far beyond that. In the end, I was using their marriage as an excuse. If not for that, then there would have been something else, some trivial reason for keeping you at arm's length that likely doesn't shock you. Yeah, I sort of worked out that was going on. I've had bigger shocks from taking off a sweater. No, I'm not surprised. You shake your head. No surprises there. You rolled your eyes inside. That was stating the obvious. Yeah, I worked out what was going on. I should have done better by you, Jude and Scott as well. Baxter's eyebrows lifted in the middle, a penitent expression. But if you still believe me, I hadn't intended for my behavior today to be as cruel as it must have come across. Your ears perked. You couldn't have guessed where this was going now. In the past, I spent every moment around other people thinking of the limited span of our acquaintance, and as I wasn't seeing them at all, only the imminent departure. Our arrangements fell in line with that, a clear timeline, limited from the outset, predetermined rules set in stone. It was that 5 years ago. It was that way now. Pip is happy! Welcome in! How are you doing today? We'd cooperate for a short period of service of Scott and Jude's wedding, and that would be that. I've said it as much myself, more than once. The problem is, as I only recently realized. He leaned in a little closer. His voice, is he blushing? His voice dipping in volume, letting you in on a secret. I forgot about that. Huh? Seeing the open incredulity I can't speak. Seeing the open incredulity on his face, Baxter gave a dry chuckle. Is he saying that he's down? He's down with the sickness? You're doing Danny's always. You had the day off today, so you went out for walkies in the city. Walkies? How was that? How was your walkies? I'm glad you're doing dandy as always. You see, I thought completely and earnestly that I didn't need to speak with you now, here, when I was feeling so sensitive. Very hot and sweaty. I feel that I went for a walk yesterday, and let me tell you, I'm so glad there was a breeze, but it was hot. It was hot yesterday. It's about 5 kilometers to the city. How many miles is that? Or 3.1 miles in your freedom units? Ew. Calling them freedom units. Nothing's free over here. This is not the land of the free. That's a lot of miles. What do you call them exactly? We just call them miles. Because we use the metric system, I'm pretty sure. Or do we? I don't know what system we use. I stopped caring once I graduated school. Freedom units it is. I stopped caring once I graduated high school. You see, I thought completely and earnestly that I didn't need to speak with you now, here, when I was feeling so sensitive. But your walk was hot and sweaty. Ew. Did you get anything in the city? We could simply pick up where we left off later tonight or tomorrow. The fact that we no longer had a reason to interact didn't come up as part of the consideration. What? What do you mean? This entire time you agonized over the idea that after this wedding he'd cut you off, and Baxter was there only imagining what the two of you might be doing next Tuesday. He's so silly. Ordered a burger and cheese fries, but they didn't give you the correct fries, and the meal was $4. Sorry, not dollars. Euros. Cheaper though, so you don't know if you can complain. I would complain still. You wanted cheesy fries. I want cheesy fries too. Share your cheesy fries with me next time. I don't need cheesy fries because I'm lactose intolerant, but I'm gonna enjoy them. I'm gonna enjoy the cheesy fries. I know. Who would have guessed it was possible to retain a connection with someone, even with no limited set of circumstances to support it? Baxter laughed once, and it was real, and then he returned to the utmost seriousness. I'm not going to simply vanish. Not again. He likes me. He wanna hug me. We also bought a 24-pack of little Pepsi bottles, rescued them from some home-cooked food. Rescued some home-cooked food and got some strawberries, too. You had a busy day yesterday. If they fail your cheesy fries next time, you might complain. No, you should complain now. You should complain now. Today. Right now. Yeah, you're going back today? Okay. They better give you your cheesy fries this time. I'm not going to simply vanish. Not again. I apologize for how stressful this was. I apologize for everything I've ever done to you. It's a little hard to approach what I've sowed over the years. So many mistakes. Oh, you went there today. I thought you went there yesterday. But you went there today. Go back again today. It'd be like, hey, I'm back for my cheesy fries that you messed up. Be mean. Well, don't be too mean, but be a little mean. And even now, when I hoped to make things right, to make things last, I'm forced to admit that I'm ignoring the reality of the situation. You're too tired to go anywhere today? Boo! What time is it? What time is it for you? Went for second walkies earlier. How many walkies? You must be, like, so fit. I don't care what you say. You're going on so many walks. You were in incredible shape. 1834. Now you're making me do math. What is that? 12. 6:34 p.m. Thank you. That was going to take me entirely too long to do mental math. Listen, I don't need to know math, okay? Like I do. But like I don't. And even now, when I hope to make things right and to make things last, I'm forced to admit that I'm ignoring the reality of the situation. Baxter shook his head ruefully. Does that even count as math? Yeah, because you have to do, like, that number minus 12 to get the time in like, my time. Or plus, if you're good at math, you can do it the other way around. You only have 12 fingers. 12 fingers. You only have 10 fingers. Okay. That's why it's mental math. Don't use your fingers. That's what I was doing. I wasn't using my fingers. Also, you have toes, too. You can use your toes. Pull them suckers out. Baxter shook his head ruefully. This doesn't come down to what I want at all. I don't want the right to put myself before you. I never did. Sorry, I know I'm rambling. The point is, if this is going to continue the way I've been silently picturing, I can't be shallow company. Toes are for toes are for the rich. You never learned to use them. Your toes? Do you need to learn to use your toes to count? I'm confused. You don't know either. You can count with them? Yeah, with your fingers. I'm counting with them right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 toes. Yeah. I just count it with my toes. I got 5 toes on one foot and 5 on the other. It was going harder and harder to listen to Baxter talk about himself this way. Black magic? Well, I am black, so maybe it is black magic. Again, you recalled your shared history. And even spent listening to him pour his heart out over your dining room table. Right? Yeah. Right. Did you forget I was black? It's okay. As a part of you wanted to interrupt, there was no denying the truth of some of it. Yes, you were still nursing the scars of what Baxter had done to you, but it had gone beyond contrition. There was one thing that stopped you in your tracks, however, the word sticking in your throat. Right now, Baxter was being utterly sincere. You thought long and hard about this, and so, despite your misgivings, you held your tongue and waited. And on that front, there's some of my own advice which I should have followed a long time ago. It's not really something you think about. Are you Canadian now? You're just gonna give up your country to Finland to be Canadian? Yeah, Mom. You're so silly. When the time comes, don't pull away. You only regret it later. Did I say that or did Baxter say that? I need to go back. Yeah, okay, Baxter said that. You're tired, so you feel silly? Are you not tired all the time? Aren't you just a silly goose? I like being silly. Makes me feel good. I don't like being serious. I hate being serious. The words were out before you even noticed, the scene echoing in the back of your mind as you said it. Baxter blinked, startled. Then his features softened for the first time since you approached him. Exactly. How apt that was. Though, honestly, I can't believe I had the audacity to say such a thing to another person, even if they were a fictional character. Still, in my ignorance, I had a point. My 19-year-old self had a few ideas worth keeping, and he had people he should have held on to as well. Baxter squared his jaw and leveled his chin, drawing himself up and looking at you full in the face. Oh. Okay. You're more silly when you're tired then? I mean, I'm also more silly when I'm tired. But I'm tired all the time. So does that really mean anything? Does that really mean anything, though? So there you have it. I would like to become your friend, or remain as your friend today, tomorrow, and a month from now, a year from now, as long as you want. Just friends? Just friends, Baxter? We could be more than friends. Fair enough, yeah. I'd like to listen to what's on your mind, as a true friend would, even if it's challenging, and I will explain myself as well. We're in public and I can understand how it might be uncomfortable to do in this exact moment. I will follow you anywhere else. Oh? Of course, that's assuming that is something you'd want. I won't push this if it's not what would help, but I'm committed to making amends if I can. You know I don't live here, right, Baxter? Are you cool with being long distance? As Baxter patiently awaited your response, you mentally scrambled to make sense of how you felt about the situation. It was all so sudden, so unexpected. Mere moments ago, you'd been convinced you'd seen the last of him, and now Baxter was recanting all his past behavior and declaring his earnest wish to make it right. And for all that happened over the last week, for all the times you imagined a conversation like this taking place, to be confronted with the possibility now? You didn't need another conversation. Baxter was your friend. You need to let him know how you felt. You loved him. To hell with talking, you have to kiss him right now. I'm not gonna do that. I'll tell him I love him though. Yes, you should talk about that, and maybe later you could tell him what you really felt. That was all you'd asked for, the chance to connect, and maybe you'd find out if he felt the same as you. You were still hurting. There was no denying it, but you weren't willing to talk. To hell with kiss him! No. Oh? His eyes got softer. He's so cute. You were entranced by his dark, unwavering eyes. Are his eyes dark? They're just brown. I wouldn't call them dark. He was there. Baxter was actually right there in front of you. If you stretched out your hand, you could touch him. Your heart squeezed painfully tight. It needed to be smaller to push its weight into your throat. More than anyone else, Baxter had been an ethereal presence in your life. From the first time he had appeared before you, when you didn't even know it. He was a mysterious stranger in the midst of a private event at the Cypress. Sometimes the scene played out in your mind as a dreamlike vision, but you'd never truly forgotten the encounter or the feelings it had sparked. Though you couldn't say you recognized who the boy grew into when he suddenly appeared on your neighborhood street. The summer of 2016 was more than you could have imagined, all because of him. In a few months you'd spent together then, a delicate relationship had blossomed between you. But during those days, you were unable to grasp how fragile it had actually been, how completely it would decay. There was nothing on to your suitor. What? There was no holding on to your suitor for a season. He tore himself away from you like an autumn storm bringing down a sapling. His cycle of being lost and found before letting go, continued in an endless loop miles away from you. Your life kept going in its own direction for 5 whole years. Yet, no matter how much it pained you, the affection you nurtured still hadn't died. Not from the downpour of the long winter that followed, the roots kept hold down deep inside. I'm adding words now. Ready to burst to the surface if the chill ever passed. Seasons were meant to come and go, but there was no guarantee summer would come again for you and him. Your paths had no reason to cross. Except they did. Again. You were given a third chance. The young man had a party for a single night. The tourist for the one summer. The planner for a wedding. Baxter Ward. This time he was reaching out to you. This time he could say he'd changed. What about you? You could take hold if you tried. The man himself, in the present, was waiting cordially as you sorted through your many thoughts. Cracks of anxiety had formed in the corners of his mouth and the creases of his eyes. The more the silence stretched, the more Baxter slipped into his forced professional pleasantness. Against his core nature, he'd been vulnerable. What you might say in response to that was eating away at him. Baxter was important to you, more than you believed. That's what made you pause. Since meeting him again, the charm of excitement you'd felt in your younger years had grown into a irreplaceable love. You reaffirmed the decision. This was your moment, and you would take it. It was all right to feel this way, right? You checked just once more that it wasn't a mistake. Your nerves were shot. What were you thinking? You couldn't take that risk. I'm taking the risk. I'm shooting my shot. The wedding was over. It was done. You didn't have to worry about making complications for Jude and Scott anymore. All that mattered is what you felt and Baxter felt, and you weren't going to wait an extra minute to find out what that was. Besides, he asked you out for the first time. It was only fair that you do it the second go around. I love you. I don't want to be friends. I want to be a couple. Then, Baxter, would you maybe want to be my boyfriend? Hey, Baxter, could I consider all the time we spent together as a date? If you want to be with me, then you should actually be with me. Ooh. I kind of like that. That's spicy. Finally, you've gotten it together. Now we can date again. Not this one. This one's so funny. I'm gonna pick this one. You said it. He heard it. There was no going back. Be passed, then another. Baxter didn't do anything after the initial utterance, except look at you with sharp-eyed incredulousness. I got him blushing. He was giving you all the time you needed to come to your senses and pretend that it didn't happen. Typical Baxter. But no matter how long he hedged, this wasn't going away. He took his hand and playfully swept Baxter into a dance. Let's dance. Ah, Princeton. The former competitive dancer stumbled along. He couldn't quite get his footing while you led him in wide swirls across the empty floor. This could never be real me. I mean, maybe if I was younger. I was like almost fearless when I was younger, but now I have all the fear. I meant what I said, Baxter. The point was made. You kindly pressured Baxter against his will into saying more than 2 words about it. Forgive me for asking an impolite question, but what could I possibly have done? Not a hint of his usual wryness or teasing sarcasm colored the words. It was a flat request for understanding. In fact, never mind. I know what I've done. It isn't anything that should lead to this. I treated you terribly. His tone had become icy. Is he rejecting me? He better not be rejecting me after all this time. Hints of the person Baxter was 5 years ago was resurfacing. The hesitancy to attach too strongly, the disbelief that he had a right to do so. Honestly, you weren't upset or surprised by his instinctive response to romantic overtures. You've known him too long for that. Did he even realize how hard he was grasping your hand? It was almost painful. Not him holding my hand. Not me kicking my feet and screaming. That's true, but I forgive you. I understand why it happened then, and why it doesn't have to happen now. No one else is you, and there's no one who could replace you. You matter to me. You're a good man, Baxter. Is he Charlie Brown? You deserve to be cared about. Baxter, you're the only one who could make me happy. No one else is you, and there's no one who could replace you. His chest rose and fell shakily. He couldn't look at you any longer and turned his face away. Baxter wasn't willing to say you were wrong or a liar, but neither could he agree with the conclusion. It was a bad idea. You were making a mistake. Those were the thoughts you guessed he was keeping to himself. A change of approach might be helpful here. You wanted Baxter to embrace the love you had for him, but that didn't have to be the first step. Will you at least let me know what I mean to you? Whether we're together or not, I want to know that much. Slowly, out of the corner of his eyes, Baxter surveyed you critically. How inconsiderate asking me that. You are aware, likely more than anyone else, what a difficult question it is. Yes, I do, but I'm saying it anyway. While you wanted to hold on, Baxter took that as his cue to release his clutch on your hand. Fine, I'll answer both what I feel and what I might do about that. It's only proper that after you've gone to so much effort. Is he rejecting me? I don't want to be rejected. But first, I need to give a few prefaces. Okay, I'm listening. Donning an aloof expression, Baxter pulled at the fitted cuff of his formal shirt. I can't stand doing anything in the morning, even if I pretend to for clients. Oh, we know, baby. We know. I don't care. We'll do stuff later in the day. Neither can I. I still want you. That's cute. You nod firmly. We'll do stuff later in the day. I mean, I'll work around it. Baxter's guarded stance quirked briefly, and he continued matter-of-factly. I can't afford elaborate trips these days. Could you before? And my only remaining social contacts are limited to wedding industry, not performance theater or owners of fancy cars, or the like. Okay. I don't care. So, I don't have millionaire buddies either. I never needed that. I still want you. I can treat you to things. Your gaze didn't waver. I can treat you to things. You be my little sugar baby. In that case, your commitment changed his demeanor for the words. No! Stoicism gave way to despondence. He threw his hands up in defeat. Princeton, I've never been a good partner, even a good friend to anyone in my life. You were to me. What happened at the end doesn't undo everything. You've grown. You did the best you knew how. I still want you. You didn't bat an eye at the warning. You were to me. What happened at the end doesn't undo everything. No matter how many of these considerations he laid out, it was never going to change how important he was to you. You could have reassured him all day, but then a glint of life flickered in his features. Baxter's lips tugged into a hopeful smirk. You should also know, I'm not one for flings anymore. Okay, I was never one for flings. You're gonna date me, and we're gonna be together forever. Are you entirely positive you want to go down this route with me? It might not be fun or as easy as short as you're picturing. Why would I be picturing something short? That is not a con. The problem has always been you running away. Truths. Tell him the truth. Well, I suppose I could put up with you. I still want you not accepting that was perfect. I'll tell you what. Let's play rock, paper, scissors to decide. As a wise man once said, in for a penny, in for a pound. That is not a con. It's your turn, Baxter. I'm letting you know right now. It was always you doing this. Full of determination, he repeated the question he promised to face. Do you want this to happen? Do you care for me? Baxter watched you quietly, carefully, noting each and every line in your expression and bend in your stance. He was nothing if not attuned to the finer details. Then with a flick of his wrist, you had your answer. In a word, yes. I'm actually so giddy right now. He sounds like he so doesn't want this. He's just nonchalant. That's my type. My type is nonchalant, unfortunately. I'm down bad. That's why I like Gil. The way he is so nonchalant pisses me off, but I love him. Wait, did he agree? Just like that? As soon as you questioned it, the instant you were taken aback, Baxter grinned wolfishly. Baxter wasn't pushed onto the back foot any longer. Oh? And a few more. Absolutely, Mr. Rigel, I'm in love with you. He said it! I told you he liked me. I knew it. I didn't stop wanting to be with you. Your jaw dropped at the change in tune. You remained amused. I did it, guys. I did it. I got my man. No, I won't belabor my objections on your taste in men. That's not what you want to hear. This comes down to what I think, and that was never actually a question, as I suspect you knew. Sorry, I'm laughing at, your... Oh my god, it's not an emoji. What are these called? Emotes. Just laughing at your emote. When I left 5 years ago, that didn't make me happy. When I kept you at arm's length after meeting again, I was unhappy still. If it doesn't need to be that way, if I was wrong, then... I don't know, honestly. I've never considered it a viable option until moments ago. But I do know what would make me happy in an ideal world. It's me? Baxter gave a bow that was somehow both earnestly deferential and jokingly self-mocking. He knew he was being ridiculous, and you did it too, yet Baxter wouldn't be himself without his flair for the absurd. I certainly hope this is acceptable. Is there anything else I can help you with today? Can I kiss him? I'm gonna kiss him. I'm gonna kiss him. You hadn't caught him by surprise. The response was immediate. Baxter, I wonder if Miranda, Terry, and Cove are watching this happen. Because I would be so fucking nosy. I would be looking. I would be staring, actually. I would not care. Baxter pressed into the kiss and to you, as much as his restrictive uniform would allow. You should have expected this reaction. For as fast as he cooled, Baxter could heat up even quicker given the proper motivation. And though it wasn't the first time you touched him that way, it felt entirely brand new. Baxter had gotten a little taller. His shoulders were broader too, and this meant that, I don't know why, but looking at him makes me want to play Persona 3. Did you guys know they had just announced Persona 6? Will we play it? Probably not. Will I get it? Probably. Probably. I don't know, we might play Persona 3. Because that's my favorite Persona game. But I honestly, I doubt I'll play Persona 6. I'll like ask my brother to stream it so I can watch somebody play it. You never played them? Oh my god. I was gonna tell you. They had it on sale. They had Persona 3, 4, and 5 on sale on the Switch. I think it might still be on sale for $20. I mean, they're not on sale, but they might still be for sale, but not on sale for $20. $20 each. I have Persona 4 and Persona 3. I'm gonna grab your Switch and check. Yes, check. It would be Persona 4 Golden, which has more content than Persona 4, and I think I want to say Persona 3 Portable, which has where you can be a girl. And I loved being a girl in Persona. That was my first Persona game, was Persona 3 Portable. And I have the original Persona on my PlayStation 3, I want to say. And I haven't played it. I've been like trying to play Persona 4. Sorry, tangent. Sorry if you're watching this for Baxter. Just tangent. I haven't played Persona 4, but my brother did. I think Persona 4 is my brother's favorite Persona game. Mine is Persona 3. And I have Persona 4 Golden, and I've been trying to play that. But I don't know. I might play it. Not on stream. But I might play it. If I play any Persona game on stream, it'll be Persona 3. Because that's my favorite Persona game. Each of them are different. Like, Persona 3 is, how do I describe Persona 3? I can't. But I can describe Persona 4. Persona 4 is, like, a murder mystery. And, like, each Persona is set in high school for some reason. Why not college? No cell hair? I'm sorry. How much is it? I highly recommend Persona 3. Persona 4, love Persona 4. Persona 5, I don't care about. Wasn't for me. And a lot of people love Persona 5, which I don't get. But I'm excited about. Both of them. Persona 3 and 4. I mean, if you want to get Persona 5, go ahead, get Persona 5. But it's not for me. They're both 20 euros. Yeah, that's a decent price, which is 5 is 60 euros. It's not even a new game. Persona 5 has been out for a while. Like I said, I recommend Persona 3 and 4. Those are my games. Anyway, back to this. Sorry, little tangent. Baxter had gotten a little taller. His shoulders were broader too, and this meant something far different than it did when you were teenagers. Then Baxter pulled away to speak, still grinning, now panting. Panting? What's he panting for? You've been checking out the Ori games? What are the Ori games? Tell me about them. Should I take that as a yes? Take what as a yes? What are we talking about? You should. There are many things we can both still do. Duly noted. I can make that work. Thank goodness. Finally. I knew it all along. You make me so happy. Shit, took you long enough. You started sniffling from joy. Decided took you long enough. Baxter slipped his hand into yours once more to finish the dance. The dance started long ago. The Metroidvania platformers. Oh, I don't like platformers. They're not for me. But how are they? Do you like them? Baxter slipped his hand into yours once more to finish the dance started long ago. The two of you were in sync then. I'm glad you like them. Like Crash Trilogy. See, I watched my brother play the Crash Bandicoot Trilogy. Like, when we were younger. I would just watch my brother play games because I couldn't play games. And then when my cousins would come over and they would play games, they would hand me a controller and pretend that and they would pretend that I was also playing the game with them, which was so rude of them because my shit was not plugged in. Sorry, a little tangent. The two of you were in sync then. Your pace increased in time with one another as you took turns leading the other around the floor that remained all yours. Baxter tilted his head, a humorous thought coming to mind. He was kind enough to share it. Nothing needed to be held back anymore. Of course, proposing during a wedding is an absolute no-no. Deciding to date after the event has already concluded should avoid the faux pas. Proposing? Girl, I didn't say I was going to marry you. You thought. I'm joking. If you want to get married, we can. Your little sister was bad at playing games, too. I still am bad at playing games. Like, you'll see me, everything's on easy mode. I don't like to be stressed. I'm sure the grooms can find it in their hearts to forgive us. Very true. Your romp ended with a grandiose twirl under the golden lights of the setting sun striking right through the ceiling-length windows, an ideal backdrop for your private performance. You decided to catch your breath from, well, everything, but that wasn't an easy task, considering you were laughing gleefully all the while. Baxter released your hand. He didn't need it since the dance was over, though he found plenty of reasons to keep you close in a gentle embrace. Thank you, Princeton. You were very kind to me, most especially. Not him blushing. He's so cute. His brown eyes were warm and inviting, an autumn beauty that made its way into your summer by luck, or chance, or fate. Always feeling out of place, Baxter kept slipping away. Now that would change. Seeing his face, it was undeniable. He wasn't some stranger there to do a hired gig, or even your old fling you happened to be reunited with. He was particular and proper, distant and difficult, shameless and smug, and Baxter Ward was yours. It seems our story has a happy ending after all. It's quite a surprise, Yeah, we've come a long way. After 5 years apart and a stubborn insistence to maintain that distance on Baxter's part, the two of you could stay together. Okay, but like, what am I gonna do about college? Because I'm in law school right now. Oh, Cuphead's on sale? Could not play Cuphead. Looks fun, but I know that game is really hard. So, you have fun with Cuphead. You were so grateful. How come you never needed anything more? How could you ever need anything more? Sounds perfect. You love hard games, don't you? You can set the difficulty with Persona. I put it on super easy, but they have like hard mode, extreme mode. You saw a review where the player couldn't get past the tutorial on Cuphead? Well, my charming boyfriend, I have a proposition for you. Oh my goodness. That would make me cry. I would cry. Or maybe not. More might be on the table after all. Oh, what is it? Having your rapt attention bolstered his already impressive boldness. If I'm recalling this correctly, now that Jude and Scott are leaving on a honeymoon, you will be alone in their home. I'm going home. I'm going home, Baxter. I have law school to go to. That sounds fairly dull, not to mention inconvenient. I would be delighted to have you come over to my apartment for the remainder of this trip. Oh? Okay. You're asking me to stay with you? I am. Again, there's no reason to waste time, and I would be a heartless lover not to even offer. Stunning, you really could never underestimate what Baxter would pull out of his tailored sleeves. Though it would be too much. If that would be too much, I won't be insulted. Staying one night doesn't require you to stay for longer. Getting more personal with Baxter before you had to go, or sitting by yourself in the Adams guest house, the decision was made. Sounds nice, Baxter. I'd really appreciate that. He was thrilled, and so were you. Everything was positively ideal. Excellent. In that case, it's all settled. It's almost settled. Why is almost settled? Huh? Almost? Yes, it's not finished yet. We are going to have to meet with your audience at some point. Our audience? Your gaze traveled off to the side in the matching motion to Baxter. Miranda, Terry, and Cove were still crowded around the tables, except rather than getting any work done, they were watching the two of you like it was the latest in daytime soaps. I knew it. I knew they were going to be watching, because I would be watching too. You're right. Oh, I forgot about them. Realizing they'd seen the entire affair, your face grew hotter. That's embarrassing. Smiling, you shake your head in resignation. I'm going to shake my head in resignation. So it wasn't exactly a private show. Baxter chuckled. Why would a little thing like having one of the most emotional interactions in life being a public event bother him? Well, it would have been a big problem if things had ended badly. Since it didn't, he was unstoppable. And the momentary distraction that stole your attention away from Baxter was over after a touch. He slipped his fingers in between yours to establish his presence at the forefront of your mind once more. You approached the gang hand in hand. They continued to gawk even after they become distantly aware of their impropriety. When you reached their part of the room, Baxter offered a cordial greeting. He inclined his head along with the words, "A marvelous evening to you, friends." Yeah. Uh-huh. More awkward silence. The two of them glanced between one another, the expressions uncomfortably pulled wide and tall. So, you're dating again? Baxter, however, needed no interlude for his response. It came without hesitation. Excellent deduction, Terry. That is correct. Cove gaped like one of his beloved fish. If he hadn't been sitting down, he would have fallen over, almost similar to the fish having to navigate on dry land. You're dating Baxter again? Mind your fucking business, Cove. I know I was talking shit earlier about him, but listen, that stays between us. It was giving you flashbacks to the last time you told people you started dating Mr. Ward. No one ever seemed to believe it. Why? Baxter was so wonderful. He had some questionable qualities, sure. That didn't change his incredible appeal. That was a hill you die on. Yes, I am. And you're both sure about that? Both, she said. That was not what she meant. Based on Miranda's weary side glance, the question was aimed right at you. It was a valid concern. You'd been hurt by him before. Neither of us are taking this lightly. Sure, it's not going to be easy to have a serious, lasting relationship, but it's something we want to try for. Then, congratulations. That's amazing. Miranda beat all the others to the punch in terms of showing excitement. However, she wasn't the last. Terry literally bopped you and Baxter in the arm with his cheer. Welcome back for good, B-Man. You're never getting rid of us now. Baxter rubbed small circles into where he'd been struck. The nudge couldn't possibly have hurt. You'd felt how harmless it was. Maybe he was worried about wrinkles? I think that warning applies more to the rest of you about me. I'm not leaving, no matter how many seasons come and go. But thank you. Cove's distinctive wavy brow stayed pinched. To say he doubted that would be an ocean-sized understatement. He did manage to smile for you, not the sunshiny beam of joy you love to see. It was a soft, I'm here for you look. Don't be terrible, okay? I want Princess to be sorry, not Princess, that says Princeton. I'm putting myself in Princeton's place. I mean, even though I am Princeton, but still. I want Princeton to be happy. Of course. I appreciate your openness to the idea. Not Well, that was still a work in progress, clearly. You weren't worried. Cove had struggled to talk to Baxter even more before he vanished for half a decade. You could give him time to get used to it. Both those men were going to be a big part of your life going forward, and at least Cove was willing to be civil. Your friends accepted your judgment and your new boyfriend, and that was something to celebrate. Thanks, that means a lot. It was a good time to mention the next little piece of news, too. Also, I'm going to stay with Baxter for a while. Not them all shook. Baxter laughed at your direct explanation. He placed a hand on his head and nodded confidently. That's right. I invited Princeton to be a guest in my apartment, since Jude and Scott were left on their honeymoon. That way he doesn't have to be there alone during the rest of their stay in the area. Also, because I would simply enjoy having his company. Already with that? Terry cracked a smile and gave Miranda a nudging elbow as he needed to get a look at this. As she needed to get a look at this, then he whistled. I don't know how he does it, but the man has done it. He whistled louder this time, and Miranda slapped a hand across her mouth. She spun away from the group. It was so obvious by the way her shoulders were shaking that she was laughing. But really, how did you do it? To be honest, I'm not quite sure how either, though I imagine it was more to do with Princeton's generosity and kindness than any quality I possess. Terry and Miranda exchanged a silent grin with one another and then shared it with you. Somehow you managed to defy the odds. It was a marvel to everyone standing there that everything had worked out. Working as a team, those left in the venue carried piles of boxes and bags into the elevator and down to Terry's van. It took a few trips, a couple of high fives, one dive for the elevator doors, and many silly comments, and it was done. Then came the final puzzle, fitting it all into the vehicle. After some creative arrangement work inside the trunk, what remained of the wedding had been safely packed away. Together with Terry and Cove, you squished the trunk door shut and pressed. When you heard it click into position, the three of you slumped forward and sighed wearily. Terry spun on his heel and wiped his forehead with another of his exaggerated displays of exhaustion. Phew, another successful party in the bag. Terry moved to Miranda's side and hooked his arm around her shoulders. He playfully pulled her in close. We're professionals at this point. Miranda rolled her eyes, but nothing could derail her unmistakable delight in her boyfriend's proclamation. She lightly patted his hand on her shoulder. Terry, Baxter is a professional. Did you forget? Well, that only proves my point. We're doing the same work. Miranda giggled and simply accepted Terry's argument. She shook her head as she calmed down. Yeah, okay. None of this would have been possible without any of you. We did a great thing for my family. Thank you so much. Miranda sniffled and blinked, trying to keep the tears away. I think the wedding was great. You did a really good job. Terry nodded solemnly and gently rubbed the side of Miranda's arm. Baxter watched over the group, smiling earnestly. Despite all the talk about being professionals, it was the least businesslike Baxter had acted around them in 5 years. Likewise, your efforts were impressive. Thanks to everyone, go team. Yeah, thanks to me for all the hard work I did, you tease. Yeah, it's okay. I'm never playing a wedding ever again. I'm not going to say that in front of him. You gave a thumbs up, not a big sigh. Thanks everyone, go team. Wiping her palms on the sides of your fine attire, it was hard to believe the wedding was truly done. It kind of felt like you'd won a championship. If you were in need of a shower and a big block of uninterrupted sleep, but you also felt a huge surge of pride for the hard work that paid off today. We actually made it. Woo! Jerry threw a fist in the air with his cheer, and Miranda joined him on the next one. Baxter clapped gracefully. Yay! Party planning committee reunion! On that note, the wedding was officially done. There was no reason for any of you to return to the empty event room, and tomorrow strangely lacked any important appointments. There wasn't a single reason remaining for you to set foot in Baxter's office anytime soon. It was entirely at an end. The only traces of what originally brought the 5 of you back together had been unceremoniously stuffed into the van. It was unintentional, but you stood there in a moment of silence until Baxter used that opening to clear his throat. Since we're gathered here, and there's no longer a wedding to fuss over planning anymore, I must use this opportunity to properly apologize to the rest of you. Baxter threaded his fingers through his hair and faced the uncertainty staring back at him. To not beat around the bush, I treated your friendship and the time we spent together inconsiderately. I decided things for you and about you and without letting you have a say in it. I was wrong to do that. It was unfair, and I'm sorry. His sincerity left the 3 unable to react, at first anyway. Gradually, the words snuck in, and your friend's actions flickered between you and him. The corners of Terry's mouth tugged into a satisfied smile. He proudly raised his chin and bumped his fist into Baxter's shoulder. I always knew you had it in you. Better late than never, B-man. Miranda bashfully wrapped a stray curl around her finger and hummed in agreement. There's no reason why we need to forgive you anymore. Exactly, so don't worry. It's all water under the bridge now. Sure, forget it. We can start over. Shut up, Cove. Why are you even here? Finally, Baxter's lips parted. He breathed a deep sigh of relief. The weight of his worries visibly lifted free. How long was he waiting to do that? Years, you imagined, anxiously picturing the possible directions that conversation could have gone. I appreciate the understanding. Again. Yep, we're understanding people. Alrighty, so. Terry clapped and then pointed at the van. Miranda and Cove nodded, understanding what that cue meant. Some of us are still gonna have to unpack this mess. We gotta get out of here, right, Randy? Uh-huh, sorry. No, please, go on. A short goodbyes were traded, then Terry, Miranda, and Cove tiredly slid into the van. Somehow, Mr. Holden had convinced Cove to stay in his old bedroom, despite it being turned into a makeshift storage container, and the others were going to drop him off on their way. You can stay at my house. I'm not going to be there. You encouraged him to do it, even though he would have been happy to join you in the Adams house. Cove rolled down his window and propped himself on his elbow. He waved you closer. By the way, it's going to be a busy day for me tomorrow. Me and my dad, you know? What about you and your dad? What about you? Terry leaned back in his seat and tried to spot you through the back window, but he couldn't see past Cove's body. He opted to yell his comment. Randy and I are working. If things go well, we're going to have time for yourselves after all this. Thanks. After that, sleepy promises to see each other were soon shared. And then, at long last, everyone went on their way for the night. Oh, there's more? I really thought this would be done after the wedding, but I'm glad to see there's more. I'd love to see it. There was one final pit stop left before you could return to Baxter's place in the city and rest. June and Scott's house. Oh, I'm not glad to see there's more. Actually, I thought we were going to go sleep with Baxter. Unfortunate. The suburbs were calling you to come and collect your clothes. Baxter used the moment alone to check if you were truly alright with your friends being aware of the relationship. You reassured him, but asked not to spring it on anyone else without preparation going forward. You reassured him and anyone could know. I don't care. Tell the world, baby. During the drive, you sent them a text to let them know how your plans had changed. The newlyweds responded quickly, and they were thrilled to hear that you would have company while you were still in the area. While they never outright said it, you got the impression over the last few days that they had been feeling guilty. Honeymoon or not, leaving a house guest behind just didn't sit right with either of them. Their thoughtfulness and concern were appreciated, but now the lot of you could breathe easy. Before putting your phone away, you sent off one last text wishing them well and safe travels on their honeymoon. They replied instantly and thanked you for helping to give them one of the best days of their lives. Once you reached the house, Baxter parked the car and followed you out. In seconds, you unlocked the front door with the handy spray key you'd been gifted and let him inside. It struck an odd note observing how silent the house was without Jude or Scott to fill the space. You were newly relieved to not be there by yourself. Though it kind of sucked to have to pack as soon after cleaning the event room. There was growing anticipation in your gut that spurred you on. There was no way of knowing what to expect from temporarily moving yourself in with Baxter, but you were optimistic. How long am I staying? Don't I have stuff to do? Doesn't he have stuff to do? Peeking past your shoulder, you spotted Baxter in the doorway. He was graciously waiting on standby, and once you were ready, he stepped in and helped you carry your bags to his car. Not once did he utter a single complaint, but fortunately, you also hadn't barely... What? But fortunately, you also hadn't brought nearly as much as an entire wedding's worth of things. There we go. Between the two of you, it didn't take as long as it took to pack Terry's van, and then you were ready to go. Again. But you did one more sweep of the house to make sure everything was in check, nothing was left on, and you locked the door. Then the two of you were on your way once more. From there, Baxter brought you to his apartment for a second time and pushed the door open. He flipped a nearby light switch on, and together you went inside. Naturally, you weren't nearly as out of place as before. Baxter wanted you there, and that invitation made a huge difference. Oh, now we can go through his fridge! What's he got in there? Sighing drowsily, your body knew there was nothing left to worry about. You could finally rest. Baxter seemed equally ready to collapse at the end of a long chain of stressful challenges. Whoa, now. He exhaled deeply, and despite his weird demeanor, Baxter offered you an amiable smile. Are you ready to get settled in? You can bring your bags into your room. Then you'd be free to get changed to something more comfortable, or to pass out, anything you wish. For a moment, you found yourself caught on his choice of words, declaring the guest room as plainly yours. It was wonderful, but also almost far-fetched to believe that you held a concrete place within Baxter's world. That's a great idea. After the busy day you had, you were more than ready to put on something infinitely more comfortable. Wonderful. Baxter rubbed the side of his neck and yawned. He took a pause to get his sore body moving again, and at some point his thoughts wandered off elsewhere. Ah, yes. He glanced roughly in the direction of the bedroom side. Crossing your arms, you tilted your head curiously. What's wrong? I was recalling the state of my own room, and I'm fairly certain it's a mess thanks to the debacle this morning. So, nothing important. I'm not eager to tackle that tonight. It's a problem I'll deal with a later date. I'm good at that, aren't I? His usual self-derisive jabbing had all the bite taken out of it. He smirked with honest amusement. Pretty good. It was kind of funny, which was wild. Then Baxter brushed that thought off and returned his attention to the present task. He helped you carry your bags. I'll come back to the living room area once I'm finished getting out of this uniform. Feel free to change and decompress at your own leisure. You answered with a content, sleepy hum and followed Baxter to the guest room. Once your bags were safely inside, he cleared his throat. Please excuse me for now. After that, he swiftly exited the room. For the first time in a long while, watching him go didn't strike an odd chord. The two of you would talk later, and you knew that for a fact. The apartment wasn't that big, so there wasn't a chance that you could miss each other. In the meantime, you began unpacking and arranging your things in the new space. There was no rush, but the small changes were comforting. Later, when you were showered and dressed much more comfortably in your sleepwear, you found yourself wandering into the living room. There you spotted Baxter leaning over the counter in the kitchen. You had a sudden realization. Despite spending the previous night in the same place, you never had caught a glimpse of what Baxter wore to bed. All you saw was the sight of him in his leafy underwear. Baxter remained obscured behind the furniture and pursued something on his phone with a creased brow. Was that perused? I think that might have been perused. You wondered if there was some wrap-up still needed for the contractors that worked on the wedding. Before you could ask, Baxter joyfully abandoned his phone on the counter because of your arrival. He straightened his back to his full height. Okay, black and white pajamas, we see you. And you got the best view of what he was wearing. White silk jammies with a shiny black trim. On his feet, a pair of zebra-striped fuzzy slivers. Oh, he's adorable. Ah, Princeton, hello again. He unconsciously smoothed the front of his shirt, but froze the second he touched the silky material. The corner of his mouth quirked. I'm pleased to see you're seeming relaxed after the day we had. I'm aware of how this looks with the limited color scheme of my attire. I kindly ask you not to laugh. I won't. The word clothes for pushing it, but there's no coincidence here. What? I don't know what you're talking about. You laughed. Well, some things really do say the same. I have no complaints to very nice pajamas. Some things just say the same. He's so cute. He's adorable. Leaning your hip against the side of the counter, you smirked playfully. Baxter had monochrome from his head to his feet. If you wanted to pretend he had outgrown this particular taste, that was fine. But the truth was a blinking white sign staring you in the face. Black and white really are your colors. Baxter covered his mouth and momentarily tried to turn away. He instantly felt to hide his own amusement. Oh, fine, I confess. I haven't outgrown the aesthetic as much as I claim. Black and white remains my preferred color scheme. And all my pajamas are these colors, so we were bound to put all the puzzle pieces together. Not him being cute. Ah, it's adorable. His cheeks began to ache from a splitting grin. Baxter crossed his arms, but his expression remained fond. I only wish to indulge in my habits in a private manner. It'll be our secret, then. Baxter's mouth opened, but his phone buzzed before he could speak. Does that work? It shouldn't be. Baxter reached over the counter and checked. His playfulness quickly vanished and his smile strained. Regrettably, no, not work. This should be significantly more painful. His voice fell to a hushed whisper then he reached for the phone. Hello, Xavier. Not Xavier calling. Maybe Xavier stood by and was like, I'm watching them get together. They're my OTP. He muttered the name like his own personal arch nemesis. You recognized it immediately. Xavier was the baker, and Baxter's work acquaintance who considered him a friend regardless. That put the reason for the night call and Baxter's words into a much more context. Baxter lightly tapped the screen and set the phone on speaker. Hi, sorry to call so late. I wanted to check in on how the wedding went and on you now that it's done. Are you holding up all right? Baxter's gaze landed on you. The day you met Xavier, Baxter was still trying to push you away as quickly and professionally as he could. And that was also the day that I told Baxter I couldn't stand his ass. Because it's true, I can't stand him. I mean, he's so cute. It was incredible how everything had changed. That's so considerate. Yes, I would say I'm doing quite well. Hi, Xavier. Thanks for checking in. I'm here too. Oh, hi, Baxter. Has this on speaker. Xavier, it's good to hear from you. Wow, you're such a sweetheart. You stayed quiet. I'm staying quiet. It's none of my business. It's none of my business. Don't worry about it. Yes, though, I should clarify that you're not speaking only to me. I've placed the call on speaker because Princeton is here. You can say hello to him too. Princeton? Right. I most certainly do remember you. Yes, I thought so. You certainly thought so. I certainly thought so. Hi, Princeton. The tone in Xavier's voice shifted smugly. You watched a small crease form in Baxter's brow. So, Princeton's still in your presence, Baxter? Yes, he is. Even though the wedding is finished? Yes. Wow. Xavier huffed confidently, as if their designs had all gone to plan, despite them not having any part of it. That's lovely. I'm truly happy to hear that, Baxter. I'm sure you are. I also invited Prince to stay at my apartment for the remainder of this trip. Didn't you swear up and down that you were, I quote, never going to associate with him after the wedding? Damn, okay. I'm glad you put him on blast. Baxter met your eye for a split second and found himself staring at the ceiling. He tapped on the counter, smiling wryly. Yes, in both manners. I do not understand what's going on with you two. Neither you nor Baxter knew what to say next. Xavier's plain words hung there in the air until they let you both off the hook. We should get together before Princeton leaves. You did mention that before. I know, I meant it then. I mean it now. Baxter sighed quietly and brushed his hand through his hair. Things never really went his way interpersonal, relationship-wise. Does tomorrow work? We can grab some coffee. Baxter hesitated and checked your face for an answer. You moved to speak, but he remembered he was supposed to be good at managing people. Please hold. He automatically used his customer service voice and clicked the screen, putting the call on mute. Baxter carefully rested the phone face down. He breathed in deep and then slowly exhaled. Baxter wore a tired smile. I apologize. I should have anticipated that Xavier would follow through on that threat or request. Actually, I did have something in mind for tomorrow. I gotta go see my mom's. Of course, you've been busy with the wedding preparation. Tomorrow was finally a free day. Right, I haven't seen my mom since I got here. They've been waiting for me to come home and visit. Well, what's her name? Her name's not Julia. What is our sister's name? I can't think of our sister's name. Will she be there? That's a wonderful plan. I can drive you to Sunset Bird in the morning, and you can spend some quality time with your parents. They must be eager to see you. Nodding, you were curious about how your day was shaping up for tomorrow. Baxter's return to the neighborhood would be a massive surprise. Don't worry. I'll save your way once you're there. Perhaps I'll accept the coffee with Xavier. What? You wouldn't be in the way. I want you to come. Wait, you're gonna leave me there? Could you come with me? Don't you want to see? Don't you want to see my moms? Why would he want to see your moms? You looked at him confused. I want you to come. You do? Yes, Baxter. I thought we were gonna spend some time together. Baxter grew flustered in front of your growing frown. He ruffled his hair and caused several pieces to stick out oddly in his frustration, his mouth pressed into a fine line. I'm doing it again. I'm doing it again. It's always my first response. He straightened himself out properly before speaking to you again. In the spirit of being truthful about my feelings, even when they're not ideal, I'll admit it. I'm nervous to meet your mothers again. I'm not exactly thrilled to see what would happen if I appeared in front of them. I doubt they've forgotten anything. I made a terrible impression on them, didn't I? That's fair. But you can't avoid them forever. That's not the strategy that works, remember? Especially if we're dating. Especially if we're dating, Baxter, you can't avoid them forever. What if we get married? He rubbed the back of his neck and shrugged. Baxter seemed to be relieved you were at least able to understand one another. Old habits die hard. Still, you should come with me. They'll forgive you. So they do dislike me. Nothing is as bad as it feels in your thoughts. My parents are sweet, and they're going to hear about the wedding anyway. You're an important part in that story. Unfortunately, those words did little to persuade Baxter. He continued to drag his feet over this predicament. He wasn't willing to accept this invitation, but he also wasn't willing to outright reject you either. I'll go with you to see Xavier if you come with me to visit my mom's. A compromise, Xavier wanted to meet in the morning. Didn't you want to visit your mom's first thing? I don't mind seeing my mom's later on. We could ask Xavier if they'd rather get a different drink in the evening. It doesn't matter to me who we see first. There's time for both. There's time for both. You didn't like that. Yes, I suppose there is. He placed a finger in his chin. Baxter carefully considered the possible options, as usual. If it's alright with you, I prefer not to keep you from visiting your family. That's fine. I don't think a few hours is much of a delay. But we can plan to see them first. We could ask Xavier if we can hang out later on. Yes, that'll work quite nicely. I believe Xavier should accommodate that request easily. But where should we go for drinks? I wonder if that interactive play bar place can be visited as just the bar. It'd be nice to check it out after so long. Ah, yes, you can attend the drinks and atmosphere without catching a show. Great, that's what we could do. Then one final detail. Would you be fine seeing your mother's not too early in the morning? You knew Baxter would agree to whatever you decided, but his brown eyes begged for mercy. Yeah, that's fine with me. Baxter pressed a dramatic hand over his heart. He expressed a genuine sigh of relief. It seems we have a plan. Now we need to run by Xavier in their current schedule. I need to BRB. I have to take a potty break. Okay, we're back. He tapped the screen and turned the mute setting off. Hold on, I need to make sure. Yes, okay, we're good. Xavier, are you still there? I am. Excellent, thank you so much for waiting. It's fine. I imagined Princeton wouldn't let you hang up on me, even if you wanted to. Very funny. We just needed a moment to sort out a few pertinent details, and you're in luck. Princeton does have time to see you tomorrow. However, rather than in the morning, we were thinking of meeting in the evening for drinks. It's a particular bar that we've enjoyed in the past, and I think we could make a fun fit. Make a fun fit. What? And I think it would make a fun fit. Would that work for you? That sounds perfect. We'll do it. I'll text you the address and the specific meet time and after the call. You were proud of him. Baxter had well and truly changed. I did not think this was going to be this long. But also, I'm glad that I started at 11. Okay, Princeton. Okay, Princeton is lucky to have such a well-mannered personal assistant. Xavier's got jokes. That's funny. Baxter caught your eye for a split second, and you swear there was a mischievous glint. He moved closer to the phone and smirked. I'm not his assistant. I'm Princeton's boyfriend. Xavier didn't say anything. The line fell completely silent until you heard a long, deep breath. No, I think you did. Your grin stretched from ear to ear. Baxter's charming ease in declaring his new position in your life was exhilarating. Okay. Baxter lighted in the joy of his words that brought you. The softness in his expression only made your heart pump faster. Well then, I'll need you to explain that later. Of course. Princeton and I will see you tomorrow, Xavier. Goodbye. Bye. Hopefully they'd heard you before the call ended. Baxter smirked as you absentmindedly gave a short wave with your goodbye. I'm honestly not sure how I feel about you two spending more time together. You're thrilled, I'm certain. Bye. And so Baxter tapped the screen to end the call. He left the phone on the counter. Just like that, the two of you had a full day of plans set. Whoa. His full forced smile dimmed. For a little while, you both managed to be casual, as if everything was normal and nothing had ever happened, like you'd never been apart. But in the late hour, there was nothing left of casual life distractions. The lingering unease revealed itself. I apologize for keeping you up. I don't mind. Then, do you want to talk for a little longer? As sorry as I am, I don't think I've been as open as I could have been. You accepted how I was, still am in some regards, but can't fully understand it, am I right? He was. There was no denying it. You'd never grasped the reasons for the way he acted. If you have something you want to say, I'd be glad to listen. Baxter's attention wandered about his apartment. He slipped a hand into his pocket. Could we move this downstairs? Downstairs? Oh, I thought he had a downstairs in his apartment. I was about to say, are you holding out on me, buddy? The lobby of my building has an amenity I'm rather fond of. In your pajamas? Okay, that's a choice. Interesting. This has already taken a turn for the unexpected, but whatever it was could make him feel better. You would go with it. Sure. Thank you. He led you out of the apartment and down the elevator in the ground floor lobby. From there oh my gosh. It's starting again. If I start reading really slow, I apologize. But my brain just doesn't cooperate. From there, you went to one corner where a seating area surrounded a chic modern fireplace. It was alight. That was what he was drawn to. You knew it without being told. Here we are. After sweeping his hand out over the space, Baxter settled into a chair by the fire. He took a spot near him. The fire popped and crackled. You watched the flames, hypnotized by the way they danced. This is a humbler setting than the last fireside talk we had, isn't it? After such a long walk down memory lane, it would have been lovely to return to that mountain lodge together. Miranda and Terry will be taking a grand trip, on my suggestion, might I add. It only seems fair we should as well. Who's paying for this trip? Is it me? I'll do it. But just so you know, I better be... I'm joking. I'm joking. Throwing up his hands in mock defeat, Baxter could laugh at himself. Of course. When have I ever taken my own damned advice? Well... Don't answer. I know it's never, or perhaps never until only today. Yep, that was the correct reply. At least in this case, it's not for the lack of trying or a stubborn impulse to do the opposite of what would improve my life. It's the matter I warned you about, the charming reality of limited expendable income. I can't afford to flitter off on vacations whenever the mood strikes the way my parents can, but I have a very comfortable existence. He shrugged his shoulders, sinking deeper into his seat. It's nice, if lonely. Of course, let's not pretend I have anyone to blame for that other than myself. I ended every relationship I had with my own actions. It's a story of my life. I want to be liked, but I don't want to be important. A suitor for a season, the planner at a wedding, is the kind of role I'm comfortable in. Perhaps that's why I'm drawn to people who are wanted by everyone else. They don't need me. I can be someone. I can't be the one. Why? The word came out instinctively, before you could stop yourself. There was no reason for him to believe that about himself. You couldn't accept it. Baxter's arms and legs crossed as he closed his eyes in contemplation. I'm not sure I would have been able to answer before, even if I wanted to. But I didn't until very recently, as you saw firsthand. I understand where my limits were, and generally left it at that. But where did those lines come from? I'd begun to reflect on it since I met you again. Seeing you made me doubt my own motivations. And I came to a conclusion somewhere along the way. I did know. I knew it all along, and simply chose not to think about it for a long time. Finally, he looked at you again. His eyes were a dark pool, crystal clear but bottomless. I don't deserve to have that kind of relationship with another person. That's why. The same question came up to the tip of your tongue. Why? You felt as if you were asking that with him. But this time you didn't have to. Baxter answered the unspoken plea on his own. I don't contribute anything. Maybe I can impress others for a time, but how do you go beyond that? I can't say what it means to be significant as a person, to be irreplaceable. And since I don't have the answer, I certainly wasn't going to assume I'd do it by accident. The more Baxter voiced those long hidden feelings, the quieter he spoke. Baxter whispered to the fire, as if he was all alone. What does it take to add value to someone simply by just being there? I tried, but I never knew. In my eyes, there's a world of humans living freely among one another, while every connection I create is so fragile. If I make the wrong step, I might hurt them, or hurt myself, and if it's strained at all, it will break entirely. Of course, I do so entirely off the mark, and everyone else might have the same struggles. Who would I know? What would I know, right? Baxter smirked self-derisively, recalling he had an audience. Still, it was frightening to want a deeper connection because I couldn't do it. So I lived on, accepting what seemed to be my reality. It was painful listening to his innermost fears and insecurities, but Baxter wasn't done reflecting. You gritted your teeth and stayed quiet. I'm old enough to have forgotten my earliest years. Everything before about 6, maybe 7, if nothing but a vague blur. What I do distinctly recall is that, as a child, I unequivocally thought I was better than other people. That those who met me were lucky, and I could pick anyone I wanted as company. The onus was on everyone else to impress. If someone was boring, or maybe I just didn't like the colors they were wearing that day, I could find a new playmate easily. After all, I had the most to offer. Naturally, what I was offering was what my parents had. A big, cool house, exciting outings, the best toys. It wasn't until I was 11 or so when I developed my first stable friends. They might not have been rich like me, but they had their own charms. Those ties couldn't be replaced. Becoming attached to other people, especially those people, made me realize what I believed wasn't true. He straightened out his back and came up to the edge of the chair. And it was so obvious. They were wonderful. I felt things I had never had before. All it took was being who they were. It didn't matter what their parents did. No fancy venue could top genuine camaraderie with their company. And for whatever reason, I was in the club, and I was happy. The person who was lucky to be there was me. A beautiful sparkle of sentimentality brightened his features even more than the glow of the fireplace. I had wanted my friends to feel the same way towards me, to have that kind of incredible effect on another person for no reason other than I was Baxter. Then the light went out, but as I was older than all of them, as sheltered as I was, I got along better with kids not quite my own age, immature as always. Life changed fast then, and the years between us became more noticeable than with every day. I never reached a point where I felt like I knew what I was doing before suddenly it was if I didn't belong with them anymore. That they didn't have time to keep me around with the differences in their schedules and priorities, and I accepted that, so the friendships ended. We stopped talking as young teens, and I haven't seen them since I left for college in 2015. I thought they mattered to me, but when have I done anything for them? Why did I deserve to be liked and included when all I did was want to happen, and abandon them when it didn't? None of the animation, emotion, life was left in Baxter's retelling. He continued hollowly. I miss what it was like having real friends. I miss those friends I used to have. Sometimes I wonder if they remember me. Sometimes I wonder what they think of if they do remember me. I wonder what they think of me now. But, with a flick of his wrist, he wryly brushed off the admission. We're both aware it's only as a full-grown man I learned that lesson. I've made many more mistakes than that. He hadn't given up the concept of vulnerability entirely, however. Baxter softened once more for a different confession. I've also missed you over those 5 years. You missed me. And Terry and Miranda and Cove. And that summer in Sunset. Why did you miss Cove? Out of all of them. Cove? And that summer in Sunset Bird. Mostly it was you who I thought of. During that trip, I did feel wanted. Okay. It was exciting and amazing, and I felt impossible it could last. The shine would wear off eventually, as always. I didn't want to see it happen. What if I seemed pathetic for being attached to people I met on a short vacation? You had your real group of friends who lived with you there already. Or what if you stopped responding to me after realizing I wasn't that interesting? You know what, that's real. That's so real. I feel that. Or why would I have even assumed there'd be a reason to talk to me at all, once it was no longer convenient? I'm aware that's not a kind of way to view you, but it wasn't that you'd done something to make me believe it would happen. It's my viewpoint for every situation. You recall the night before the wedding, when Baxter admitted he dyed his hair. The problem on this night was very much the same thing. Baxter couldn't see his own value, and he always feared others wouldn't either. The first time since he began spilling out his heart, Baxter paused. He considered the way he wanted to put his next words and then continued. Back then, during my tourist phase, we took that brief trip to the mountains. On a hike, we passed a tree that had fallen across a stream. If you can picture that, it was as if we were on the opposite sides, and I couldn't take the path to you because it looked risky. Oh. You certainly hadn't forgotten the experience. What he said didn't line up with your memories of that day. But Baxter, it's not something you did. We walked on it together, and then went back to the same side. You crossed the stream bravely. I got him to chuckle, ever so slightly. That was my attempt at a poignant, personal, relevant metaphor. but I'm quite impressed you remembered the details. He shook his head amusedly, eyes closed, and tossed both his hands up. I suppose that is a true story of my life, not me understanding a thing and getting it all wrong at every turn. Then Baxter set his attention on you completely. He wasn't playing around anymore. Was he playing around to begin with? Rather than dancing around this, I'll say it directly. Not trying to stay in touch with you is something I'd regretted for a long time. I will always regret the days I lost, even now that we've reconnected. I'm sorry, Princeton. Many times it would be impossible to count how many. You imagine a moment like this. Baxter Ward standing, or sitting, in front of you, sharing with you his real feelings. You never thought it would happen. A dream was only a dream. And yet, it was happening. You understood what he was thinking, what drove him away, why Baxter was so Baxter. Clarity you'd painfully wished for had come at last. You got up and hugged him. You reached over to take his hand. You went over and squished into Baxter's chair with him. You stood up and kissed him. You nodded understandingly. You know what, I'm gonna hug him. He looks like he needs a hug. Oh, maybe he didn't like that. Baxter was initially confused by your sudden approach, and then flat out stunned when you threw your arms around him and desperately held tight. Unsure if you were sad or hurt or what, Baxter patted your back gently. Of course, he wouldn't think your woes were for his sake. He was a silly gentleman. But it was wonderful, indulging in his warmth, and even better knowing you wouldn't have to let go again. Not for real. Thank you for telling me, that means a lot. I'm sorry you had to go through that by yourself. I love you, Baxter. You're irreplaceable to me. You always mattered, and you should be cared about. Congratulations on making it across the bridge. I'm glad you did. You've always mattered and should be cared about. Thanks for saying so. I appreciate you listening to your rambling lover for this long. Baxter smiled, surely moved. What was lost, what could ever be, had been there all along, and if he had just reached for it. And he accepted your words without buts, exceptions, and waving it off. You treasured him, and you could believe that he was starting to accept that. He couldn't have been happier. With Baxter's piece said and done, you both returned to your shared home. What an incredibly, exceedingly long day. You went right to sleep. Next morning, you ambled out of your room into the hall. It was so early you were bleary-eyed. You let yourself sleep in and were still tired. You slept in a lot and you couldn't sleep in more. It was nice and early and you were feeling good. You slept in a bit and were energized by it. You slept the morning away but needed it. You were really rested. And well, I slept in a bit. Checking in the apartment, you found the living room was empty and so was the kitchen. Baxter hadn't come out of his room. You heard no signs of stirring either, so he probably wasn't awake. You thought there was at least a chance he'd beat you to the early worm, but that was not the case. After freshening up in the bathroom, you still had the place to yourself. But there were things you could do. Packing. The trip was almost over, after all. You dropped your suitcase on the bed and started to lazily fill in with bits and bobs. For all your good intentions, your head wasn't in it. Alone with your thoughts, you sank into the reflection on what happened and before and imagining what could have happened next. Until the sound of the door snapped you out of it. How long had it been? You had no idea, but you were sure that Baxter was up. Slow footsteps approached nearer and nearer, and then there was a knock. Come in! Carefully, Baxter let himself in. He peeked through an only half-open door. Good morning, Princeton. Hey, morning, Baxter. I can leave you be if you're in the middle of something. Don't worry, I can do this later. You dropped a shirt you'd been haphazardly folding and joined him by the door, pushing it all the way open. It's a little excellent. I love the voice actor. It's so funny to me. He gestured with a light wave, then clad again in fuzzy zebra print slippers. Baxter shuffled to the community space of the apartment. You followed along. He dropped like a sack of monochrome potatoes into one of the chairs. I don't know. I have a taste for potatoes. I don't even like potatoes that much. Like, they're good, but like, now I kind of want potatoes. Some french fries. Baxter had no reason to rush that morning, so he could be as complacent as he wanted, which was very much. Yeah, okay. Making it from under his blanket hadn't meant he was ready to join the rest of the waking world. Baxter was lingering in his peaceful dreamland of his own home. You thought he was simply precious. You smiled. You ruffled his bed head. You poked his cheek. You flicked his nose. You kissed his forehead. Kiss his forehead! His eyes fluttered close as you gave him a soft peck. Baxter sighed sweetly. Baxter then curled his legs onto the couch while stretching his arms up towards the ceiling. It feels as if it feels as if the wedding was a long time ago, not yesterday. I can't believe all this happened in less than a week. It was yesterday? Wow, you're right. It was pretty incredible. You snickered. You shook your head inside. I can't believe this all happened in less than a week. He only murmured softly in response, unable to muster the energy for entire words. You took it delightfully easy while getting decent for the day. Baxter had a wide selection of lotions, oils, and creams for the skin and hair, which you were permitted to raid as much as or as little as you wanted. He made liberal use of it for himself. Why were you not surprised he was the kind of man with a 30-minute morning pampering routine? This man bougie as fuck. Of course he has a pampering routine. The two of you also got to enjoy a comfortably quiet breakfast together before finally heading out. You left the city behind, shot straight past the suburbs, and headed towards the horizon. A tiny tourist town came into view under the high noon sun. Baxter's car came to a stop along the side of the street. It was the same spot he'd used to have when he was a tourist. It already felt good to be back. You were energized, downright perky. Things had finally come full circle. You climbed out and strolled down the road to your childhood home. Oh, okay, this is an outfit. I thought this was your wedding planning outfit, but go off. No, my wonderful and forgiving Princeton. Baxter spoke out haltingly. Are you positive this isn't going to be an unwelcome intrusion? I mean, if it is, I don't care. You're my boyfriend now. When I say goes. I'm not saying this because I'd prefer to hide from my past. I'm done with that. Liz! That's her name. Did I call her Julia? But I think we should give your parents space if they need it. It's not my promise. Sorry, Baxter, to lay the bag out now. It should be fine. We'll probably get protective, but that's normal. Very well. He accepted his fate. This already hadn't been his week, avoiding embarrassment-wise. What was one more egg to the face? When you reached the door, you rang the obscured bell. After only a minute, it flew open. There was your mom, supporting her new shorter haircut and beaming with expectation. She wasn't disappointed by what she saw. Pam! Princeton is here! She shouted the announcement down the side hall before speaking to you face to face. Hello, please come in. You were ushered inside just like that. Ma kicked the door shut behind you with all the back of her heel as Mom ambled along in the entryway. We've got a real party today. Mom was looking chipper than with the retired English professor outfit she had on. You gave them a wave, you took your hand, and here's you I'm gonna hug my mommies. 4 arms wrapped around you in response. You squeezed together in a Rigel family love fest. You were never old enough for them to stop fawning over you. Yep, I'm back. Hi there, kiddo. Thanks for taking the time to swing by. Yes, welcome home, sweetie. And hello to you, too. Ma pointed her face directly towards Baxter. He got the full force of her cheer. It's a surprise Princeton found someone he wanted to bring home. I imagined you'd spend the time with the unusual faces. It's such a short trip. But it's not a bad thing. It's lovely he's meeting new friends. My name is Nilani. Do they not remember him? And I'm Pamela. Nice to meet ya. An awkward chuckle came from Baxter. They didn't recognize him. Sure, he'd lost his iconic sense of style, but there was plenty of recognizable Baxterisms left. We have in fact met before. Prince and I, as well as myself and both of you. My name is Baxter Ward. I visited Sunset Bird 5 years ago as a tourist. I stayed in the rental on this very street. Your most familiar welcoming grins flattened right out. Ooh, icy. The joy evaporated like an ice cube left in the parking lot during the height of California summer. I see you remember me. Baxter ran a finger along the inside edge of his collar, leaving it hooked in at the center. Despite his bold claim from before, he wasn't intending to hide, Baxter unconsciously lingered further away from your moms than you did. It positioned you as a block between him and them. So, hiding, basically. It was so sad, but extremely cute. However, Baxter didn't run or fight in the midst of the crisis. He embraced it. I'm certain I must have come across as uncaring and unreliable at that time. But I assure you, I'm relatively less immature than I used to be. Not the most flattering character assessment, but an honest one. To say your mothers weren't impressed would be an understatement. Their stony expression didn't so much as twitch. He means it, Moms. Please don't make him feel bad. He's been through enough. I forgave him for what happened. It's all good between us. You said this was already going south. You gave Baxter's arm a supportive pat. Please don't. He's been through enough. Thank you, Princeton. You have every right to be wary of me being here with your son again. And you could take as long as you need to come to terms with it. It sure was difficult to remain mad at someone so earnest. You couldn't manage it. Slowly, life returned to the two statues that had been erected in front of you. Well, your gracious Ma elected to change the subject there. How about we catch up? We've missed quite a lot for both of you. Yeah, you should tell them about yourself, Baxter. To start, I'll say that I work as a wedding planner mainly. I also plan events for certain non-profit organizations when I can. Though that's such a low rate as nearly pro bono. Nothing I could make a living out of. Huh? That was news to all of you. You never mentioned doing anything outside of weddings. Baxter crossed his arms protectively and pointedly looked away from you. This was one matter he was even shy about. If it wasn't an actual part of his career, it was volunteer work. Perhaps he didn't like to brag. That's nice. Your meddlesome parents homed in on Baxter like mother hens introduced to a brand new chick. Interesting. I wouldn't have pegged you as a love guru. Oh, I'm not. Even so, wedding planning is such a lovely career. How did that happen? It suited me in many ways. Thankfully, it was planning a wedding that caused Prince and I to meet again. Ma shot a finger towards Baxter and gasped. You were working on Jude and Scott's wedding? That's correct. It was the gig of a lifetime. Oh, darn it, I just realized. If he does other kinds of events, he could have planned a whole party for our wedding anniversary a few weeks ago. Mom, were having bustles of fun by then. Baxter playfully batted their jokes and teases. Happy belated anniversary. And there's always next year. After all, I'm going to be around. At that moment, he glanced at you. Seriousness replaced his casual smile. There are no deadlines anymore. It was that look, the way he was when he saw you, that really sold Baxter for your moms. He held the stare long enough for a pause and conversation to be felt. You realized what was happening. Baxter was hesitating on mentioning exactly how much he was going to be around. Your parents had no clue you brought your boyfriend home to meet them. You gave him the go-ahead with a nod. You shook your head. You took his hand supportively. Baxter is my boyfriend. You couldn't help blurting it out. I'm gonna do that one. Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, there was no backpedaling on that. You asked Princeton out again? No. I asked him to be with me yesterday. I wish to be with him as well, of course. I don't intend to waste the chance. The revelation had your parents newly dazed. Just when they relaxed, the Baxter word factor managed to knock them off their balance again. My goodness. Talk about a dark horse. The pair of wives focused on each other, doing their mom thing where they came to the decision without having to talk about it out loud. It hit you that you were able to do that yourself with Baxter a minute ago. Wow. Ultimately, they smiled gently over the both of you. They make you smile too. Excuse me. You never doubted that your parents could find it in their hearts to accept how Mr. Ward unexpectedly waltzed into your life once more. They trusted your judgment. Plus, from their real grown-up perspective, Baxter was practically still a baby back when his solution to problems was avoiding them. They didn't have any reservations on getting to know him again now, and you got right to that. Both you and Baxter worked together to recount your wedding planning adventures. Going over the entire story nicely illustrated the absolute weekend you had. And it wasn't even 7 days. Mom and Ma went on an emotional roller coaster, visibly distraught when you described how cold Baxter was originally, and cheering when he exclaimed the moment you officially reconnected. As if they hadn't already known how it ended. You got to hear what they'd been up to at last as well. It was the same old for them, which was exactly how they liked it. But as it got later in the day, you ran out of time. There was another meet up still to have. Your mother simply appreciated that you stopped by at all and wished you well seeing your new friend. They promised to tell Mr. Holden you said hi when he got back from work. Baxter and you said goodbye and headed off to the bar. Baxter brought the car to the stop in the parking lot wedged between skyscrapers. You arrived at the theatrical bar you'd attended years ago. Inside, you were ushered through the lobby into the main room by an usher. The sight of it was dazzling as your starry-eyed recollection. Smooth jazz backed the scene, played by a live band. Some members looked as if they might be the same from before. The bartender was definitely someone new, but that was for the best, since you weren't sitting at a bar. Instead, you snagged a booth with enough room for a party of 3 and were passed an appropriate number of drink menus. It was still a bit early to start drinking, but you guessed right then that it wasn't going to stop Baxter. Oh my gosh, am I going to have to drive? Only when the host was finished and gone did Baxter take out his phone. I'll let them know we've arrived. Okay. Baxter grinned playfully, buoyed by your own positivity, and put the phone away. His attention was set on you, even if the topic wasn't. Xavier is a delightful person. That's nice. You had to imagine a person would be required to be a particularly pleasant and thoughtful individual to build up a tenuous friendship with someone as closed off as Baxter. One thing you could already of Xavier, regardless of whatever else, was that they saved your boyfriend from being entirely alone before you'd found him again. You were grateful for it. Xavier strolled through the door shortly after a set of waters were placed down around the table. They ditched the apron that day, which made perfect sense since you were meeting up casually outside of their place of employment. Though it suited them so well, it was a staple part of their look. If Xavier had worn it out, you bet strangers would have accepted it as entirely correct anyway. Your eyes met across the open space of the bar. Baxter stood to welcome them. Xavier wasted no time linking up. Good evening. He held his hand straight out for a shake. Xavier went with it, giggling. Hi, Baxter and Princeton. Thanks for finding the time to see me after all. Of course, Xavier. Of course. You and Baxter sat side by side. He rejoined you there while Xavier slid into the opposite bench. Hello, sup, hi. It's fantastic to see you again. You waved excitedly. You nodded calmly. It's fantastic to see you again. They shot you a grin and scooped up a third and final menu. Are you ordering anything? I am. I want a martini. It suits the atmosphere of this place. It is appropriate. I'm getting a margarita. Resting his arms in front of you, Baxter draped himself dramatically over the table. And finally, I can have a real Bellini. Figured. Okay, with just the water, you glanced over the alcoholic drink menu. Give me that. And you decided on hard cider, red wine, white wine, champagne, beer, gin, vodka, martini, rum cola, whiskey sour, Bloody Mary, pina colada, citrus sunshine cocktail, Bellini, margarita! There we go. I was looking for her. The early hour wasn't going to stop you either. You were on vacation for real at that point. Since everyone has decided, the order was placed as soon as the waiter came by. He jotted down the request, collecting the menus, and promised to be back shortly. The second he was out of earshot, Xavier shot a pinning stare at the couple sitting smugly across from them. Baxter. You knew where this was going. It was easy to imagine the shock and confusion Xavier must have been stuck living in until now. You referred to yourself as Princeton's boyfriend. Is that a joke? The last time we met, you were vowing that the two of you would never see each other again after the wedding. Baxter threaded his fingers together while leaning forward. He grinned cordially. There was no way to spin the sudden leap in the relationship that wasn't abysmally embarrassing for him, and he didn't care. With as with as much audacity as someone who asked a baker to make a wedding cake with 3 days' notice, your good friend gave an apologetic answer. It seems I'm a fairly overdramatic man. That's the only joke in this. Quite obviously, Prince and I will continue seeing one another. Hearing him say that so fearlessly to another person was such a thrill, though fairly overdramatic was an understatement. Incredible. It wasn't even the first time they were hearing it, but Xavier was stunned silent yet again by the news. This time, though, the conversation couldn't be ended with a tap on the screen. Well, I'm happy for both of you, but what was happening with the theatrics to begin with? They were nothing if not persistent when it came to getting the specifics. Decorators did have an eye for details. You shared the funny story, you tried to explain the awkward turn of events, you made the sad situation you'd gone through. You continue listening to Baxter recount things. I'm gonna listen to him recount things. And this is your person. Baxter squared his shoulders, looked Xavier in his eyes, and divulged his shared history. He didn't hesitate or leave anything out to save face. The unideal reality of the past was laid out in its entirety. Swirling their longest strands of hair, Xavier found the whole story much easier to grasp than they had only hearing the end. Honestly, I'm not surprised in the slightest. As pleasant as things were when you stopped by the bakery, I always assumed if you stopped having client-based reasons to visit, you never would have spoken to me again. Looks like I was right on the assessment. Baxter's gaze dropped. He couldn't have helped it. Developing closer ties could never make him ashamed, no matter how odd the circumstances. Doing the inverse, however, might always remain a source of guilt for him. It's not your fault. I have no talent for maintaining relationships that aren't entirely unavoidable, and sometimes not even then. I get it. Trust is always a work in progress, right? I'd say we'd actually become... What? I'd say we'd become actual friends eventually, but Princeton giving you a push can speed that right along. Baxter lifted his face at that. Speaking softly, Xavier was a nice person. Yeah, I think so too. Drinks arrived shortly. Damn, how long does it take to make a drink? Because that's kind of a story to have to tell. This place must be bumping. Your little group mutually took that as a closing to the interrogation of Baxter Ward and Princeton Royale. After serving the order, the waiter left once more, saying to call him if we needed anything else. Xavier and Baxter put a pause on any future discussion to sample their stuff. By their delightful ums and hms over the flavor, it sounded like the bar was a hit with both. Though Baxter would probably appreciate any alcohol over the mocktail he'd gotten the last time he'd been here. Yours was delicious too. The three of you stayed quiet until Xavier chimed in with the next major topic of this meetup, Jude and Scott Adams' wedding. There we go. How'd the day go? It went off without a hitch. They're a wonderfully stable couple. They whistled. The odds were beat, that was for certain. By all accounts, they should have been informing Xavier how the last-minute preparations ended in disaster. Yes, and your cake got rave reviews from the guests, of course. Of course. I can sleep easy knowing I made a cake for a crowd who enjoyed it, and for a couple who should actually be getting married. I'm happy for them. Some of these jobs. Shivers ran through Xavier's body. I feel like I'm making a macabre, really beautiful feast to celebrate a horrible mistake. Baxter chuckled at his colleague, his fellow in creating matrimonial bliss, and his match insight for when the happiest day of someone's life is not quite so happy. While I attempt to believe in every pair who comes through my office, it is difficult to avoid the occasional wallow in cynicism. The wedding industry complex will do that to you. Or, would have, if I hadn't already possessed a streak of pessimism when it came to relationships lasting. But we've gone down that track. Xavier's manicured lashes fluttered as they rested against the back of the booth. How do you have manicured lashes? Is that what, lash appointments are for? They sighed in relief. Relaxing time was over after 1 minute, and they tilted forward again. Now assured their efforts weren't in vain, Xavier could indulge in juicier ponderings. Hey, what bakery made that groom's cake? I admit I took a peek at what was under the cover when I dropped my own off. It was cute. Thanks, me and Baxter did. Why, that was designed by Princeton and Baxter Bakeries. We did, me and Baxter? Oh boy, you're gonna kick out of this. Don't get me started on that. You wait to hear what Baxter would say. Why, that was designed by Princeton and Baxter Bakeries. Xavier actually jumped up in their seat. What? They settled down and gingerly patted their coiffed hair, making sure it was still in place. Surprises after surprises, you're squishy under the stiff suit of yours, Baxter. As though that is actually a surprise. They giggled, the sound akin to a bell on Zake's front door. True, that part isn't. You and Princeton baking a cake is. His? You might be surprised. Don't you recall? It wasn't the first time we've been in a similar squeeze. Wait, you're right, those mystery cupcakes. Why are they mystery cupcakes? From the auspicious start, you and Baxter told more stories from the wedding. Eventually, it transitioned into Baxter sharing especially memorable moments from the other jobs he'd worked on. Some highlighted real-life potential pitfalls you could work to avoid if you ever got married, while others were one in a million debacles. The most unbelievable story was a particular orchard-set wedding. A ceremony had been prepared with flowers, a walkway, seating, and a bespoke wooden arch at the end. As the planning, he was doing a final survey, primed for the guests to arrive, when an out-of-control truck with a back end full of apples barreled straight through. Baxter stressed that the driver was fine when he managed to come to a stop, and the couple were still married, albeit in a much simpler arrangement, so no harm was done. However, Baxter distinctly recalled the comedic surrealness of it. Seeing a completed ceremony, the fruit of weeks of work, and then having it flattened to the ground in the blink of an eye was something he never expected or hoped to experience. But for all the misery of the moment, he did confess the debacle made for a great mood setter going forward. He shared the memory with every couple he worked with since to help put their struggles into perspective. It warmed your heart seeing Baxter so at ease. None of the carefully maintained distance remained between him and Xavier, or him and you. There was no sadness or sense of loss when it came time to part ways. After all, this didn't have to be final. You had the power to reach out again if you wanted. The bill was split, and that got paid before saying goodbye to the baker. With a cheery wave and a grin, Xavier left for home. You liked them. Xavier was someone you could count among your friends. You were glad Baxter had a friend that was all his own. It was interesting to speak to them more casually, but you still need to get to know them better. I'm glad Baxter's got a friend. The music was good, and the drinks weren't done, so you and Baxter were in no rush to leave yourselves. Light conversation was made. Thank you for keeping me company all this time. Thank you for coming to see my moms. I was happy to see them. It's been too long, even though it hasn't been long at all. Barely a whole month. He tapped a finger against the glass, watching you and smiling sweetly. I can understand why their presence would be missed. Your family members are lovely people. Baxter was so nice about your moms and big sis. That was something you deeply appreciated. Your family meant a lot to you. But you couldn't forget the offhanded way he noted his parents in his list of people he'd lost contact with. Baxter, I'm worried about what you said. When you mentioned your mom and dad, is that all right to talk about? Oh. Baxter's fingers were gingerly wrapped around a champagne glass, twitched. That is fine. He placed the cup down with a clink. You're my boyfriend, after all. You are allowed to know details about my mysterious, opaque life. Baxter might have been able to form quips as glibly as ever, but you hadn't missed the dullness in his eyes. To start, I haven't spoken to my parents in a few years now. That's what I meant when I included them in the list of relationships I haven't maintained. So they weren't talking at all? He frowned. Even if making new ties seemed impossible to them, what would make Baxter cut off the family he'd always known? Those questions stayed within the confines of your head. This wasn't the time to interrupt. He left your sharp reaction He felt your sharp reaction and gave a what? A tight smile. Don't worry, it isn't a painful topic for me exactly. Mostly I find it disappointing. Frustrating? Certainly awkward. Shifting in his seat, Baxter leaned on his elbow and angled his body towards you. Before I cause too much concern, they've never done anything to intentionally hurt me. My parents have always cared for my well-being, and I can't deny how much they have done for me. All the opportunities and advantages I had because they provided them. They gave me the best they knew how, and... Baxter cut himself off, raising one hand and using the other to pinch the brow of his nose. He was thoroughly unimpressed with his own ramblings. That is not as nuanced as I might be making it sound. What a novelty it would be if I could speak favorably of my own family. Can you imagine? That's not the case, however. Dark brown eyes stared into yours, as serious and unmovable as were whenever he demanded the listener to grasp the depth of the chasm between him and them. What I'm trying to say is that my parents are, on the whole, good to me, and they do love me as their child whom they raised for nearly 2 decades. Just as I still compelled to give them credit for their minimum, I'm certainly they're telling their acquaintances endless excuses for why I'm so distant and unagreeable with them. They haven't given up on me in their own way, but all that does not make them good people. I can assure you that because they're not good people, I'm merely a rare exception to the unpleasantness. My parents are selfish. They're sheltered, even as adults. For example, you, Princeton Regel, are, well, my absolute ideal. I'm in love with you. The warmth in Baxter's voice when he described you burned into a bitter ash, but I doubt they could understand, based on quite a colorful variety of factors. Are they homophobic? During Pride Month? Baxter suddenly raised his voice in arms, almost knocking over his own beloved Bellini. And his nonsense priorities and concerns are what my parents expected from me. Baxter quieted down again quick. He was in public, and you weren't the person he wanted to be shouting at anyway. After straightening out his jacket, Baxter crossed his legs under the table. How ironic that I can finally see the silver lining of my lifelong struggles thanks to them. If I never realized how poor my connections were, or if I never cared that my relationships were nothing more than associates based on conveniences, maybe I'd have been who they wanted. Regardless, I'm not their ideal son. They're not my preferred company either, and I don't expect you to ever meet my family. That's honestly for the better. I get it. Baxter had barely mentioned his parents 5 years ago when they were closer. Still, it was nothing. He'd given small crumbs of insight into the dynamic when you knew him before, and it had bothered you ever since. When you were teens, Baxter laughed off every concerning line about his family, knowing how the story ended changed the way you saw those early chapters. Do you remember when we talked about how we got along with our families before? I could ask about it. You'd taken him by surprise this time. He raised a brow. Back when we were at the hotel, you asked about my family and I asked about yours. You said something about how they were problems and they'd really be problems if your parents weren't your parents. Ah, yes, I think I did say something along those lines. It was so silly back then. Imagining myself as not their son and not someone they loved seemed meaningless at the time. They did love me and that's what mattered. Of course, it's not always enough, is it? If I wasn't theirs either, either through birth or adoption, if I was someone else's son, they would hate me. I know I'm foolish on many accounts. It took me a long time to realize that them being hypocritical shouldn't reassure me the way it did. Baxter Ward could have as many shortcomings or problems as he did, and he'd be fine because it was different in that case. There were reasons, can't you see? But they couldn't see that other people deserve the same kind of understanding, and that some things weren't problems in the first place. Mr. and Mrs. Ward were not people you needed to build up a rapport with. That was more than certain. I'm sorry for everything, Baxter. No kid should have parents who make them miserable. You deserve a better mom and dad. I hate your parents. Do you care if I say that? You suddenly fumed on his behalf. It was horrible. No kid should have parents that make them miserable. Agreed. Who knows, maybe one day I'll cobble together a family of sorts of my own. I've stopped running away whenever I get close to another person. That's the first step. You place your hand over his, you put your hand on his shoulder, wrapped an arm around him. I'm here for you. Every fiber of your being was working towards a single goal. Oh, my back hurts from sitting in this chair. Conveying to Baxter that you were there, and you would be as long as he wanted you to be. Baxter whispered gently, and you knew the sentiment got through. You are very kind. Though, rest assured, I am not as heartbroken over my lack of familial bonds as you would be if you became estranged with yours. There wasn't much to lose. Well, I wish it was different. It never has been. I'd only been theorizing about pointless what-ifs. And with the circumstances I have, not interacting with my parents remains preferable over the stress that comes with having them around. Honestly, I'm happier with the way my life is right now than I've been at any other time. I can stand on my own 2 feet. I understand myself better. I have friends. I have you again. So I would hope you can be glad by how far I'd come, rather than sad that there were hurdles to overcome. Managing a smile, you gave him an answer from the heart. I will then. I'm proud of you, Baxter. Even better still. For a moment you connected with one another, genuinely, sincerely, and wholly. That was until his ever familiar Cheshire cat grin took center stage. And, at the very least, I can be grateful that I don't have to have the thick-headed parents the bartender and diva were saddled with. Who? Who's the bartender and diva? Despite yourself, you laughed. It was a completely unexpected reference. I'm so confused. Baxter used the opening to continue reminiscing about what happened the day he invited you out for drinks so long ago. It was intentional. He didn't want to linger on the heavy topic of his family, but it wasn't forced. Baxter didn't have to pretend he was doing well. It was true. He could carry on with his head held high, and you'd get to be there from then on. It was something to be glad about. Soon in the time before it did arrive, there were other adventures to be had. You and Baxter hopped in his car once again, and the bar disappeared behind you. Neither of you had eaten since that morning. Your grumbling stomachs decided that you'd eat one of the nearby restaurants rather than going to an apartment to cook. When you were done with yet another stop and back in the car, it was well into the night. You'd been away from home for at least 12 hours. One might have thought after frantically finishing a wedding, the day after that would be comparably less jam-packed. Nope. It had been your 5th or 6th subsequent day, so squeezing every last minute of the day for all it's worth. You couldn't help keep track of how you'd been tossed about by the whirlwind activity. Your charming company and the flurry didn't bat an eye at the pace. In fact, it hadn't budged a hair out of place in his perfectly styled head. The darkness of the world and the lateness of the hour meant Mr. Ward had reached his height of energy. It was under those circumstances when Baxter offered up a new proposition. Princeton, what would you say about going dancing with me? What? He elaborated. I spent the whole of the wedding working, if you recall. Even though we stole a little time after the event had finished, that was hardly comparable to having a night out together, especially when you consider the circumstances that lingered between us. And we can't forget that you'll be leaving soon, and I'll have to start new client work shortly. So why not take advantage of the moment we have together now? Here you have been thinking you'd already made the most of the day. Apparently, Baxter considered your gallivanting around 2 towns, to be just a lead up to a yet to come grand finale. I get that, but where could we go without signing up for it ahead of time? And actually, would something even be open this late anyway? The gaping hole in the master plan couldn't fluster Baxter as expected. I know a place. No, it wouldn't be as attractive of a location as the Adams Affair. However, it's entirely functional for our purposes. To add to the fact, we could visit the apartment and change it to something more appropriate. Don't you think it's a shame I haven't gotten a single chance to wear a true suit yet? This standard everyday look doesn't have the same impact. The car stopped at a red light, and Baxter made the most of the opportunity as well, turning his head to face you directly. His expression was hopeful. It could be our first real date. At least the first of our second time being together. That would be nice. About time. I can try. Alright, but only for you, Baxter. You nodded immediately. You just shrugged. Why not? That would be nice. Thank you, Princeton. He chirped sweetly. But when his eyes went back to the road, he was smirking deviously. Baxter channeled his growing energy into a taut grip on the wheel. Finally, I have a partner I can dance with whenever he wished to. Oh, he's so cute. The light turned green and he hit the gas. Your back pressed into the seat from the rapid change in momentum. There was no rest for the wicked. It all made you snicker. His enthusiasm never failed to delight. You arrived at the apartment building, went straight up to the Baxter's floor, and through the front door of his place. Without needing to reiterate the last scheme, you and Baxter split off into your respective rooms to get fancy. You, dressed a bit nicer than your norm, dressed formally, dressed glamorously. Just a bit nicer than my norm. Considering the limitations, your hacking preparations had paid off. You had clothing for a variety of situations, including one such as this. Digging hastily, you found what you needed in your suitcase and shook out any wrinkles that might have been hiding there. It was ready to go. When you were dressed, you found Baxter already waiting in the living room. He lifted his head and a thin smile pressed across his face. Of course, he would know how to put a suit on in a flash. Brown? Okay, I suppose. If that's the life you want to live, Baxter. Baxter was dolled up in a sleek and stylish brown suit that highlighted his eyes rather than trying to distract from them. And tonight, they looked clearer than ever. The longer you stood there, the more his expression warmed fondly. You almost couldn't believe that you were willingly there with him. I knew it. Crossing his arms, your sudden snickering confused Baxter completely. His brows pinched and he glanced around the room, finding nothing of note. Knew what? That you were gonna outdress me. He gestured at your nice clothes and then at his fancy suit. His lips parted, and then there was a snort that left Baxter ducking his head away from you. Ah, I see. Baxter's voice was strained in an attempt to breeze through the conversation seriously, but between that and the way he tried covering his mouth, his amusement was too noticeable to miss. Luckily, I don't care for mismatch. Is that so? I like us just how we are. Me too, very much. Regaining his composure, Baxter finally appraised your outfit and his demeanor grew gentle. And for what it's worth, I think your ensemble tonight is a perfect fit. You also dressed excellently. I didn't expect a brown suit from you, but not in the bad way. Your suit's cool. You beamed at him, looking up and down. You applauded. He knocked it out of the park. I have such a handsome boyfriend. Baxter proudly smoothed the front of his jacket and then took a sweeping bow. One of my proudest accomplishments, if I say so myself. He idly adjusted the cuffs of his jacket. Your eyes followed that movement. I've been told the set is an attention grabber. Automatically, you glanced up and caught the gentle curve of his smile. Shall we go? I'm ready if you are. Perfect. Off we go. On that note, the two of you left the apartment behind and gallivanted off into the city. It was exhilarating to run off into the little warning to who knew where with Baxter Ward by your side. You felt all 18 years old again. You had no idea until just now how deeply you missed this. Not the parking lot. The engine cut off and Baxter's last mystery location was unidentifiable. Closing the car door, all you could see was a small empty lot and a few street lamps keeping it lit. This lot sat behind a huge building, but from the spot you had no way of knowing what the inside could be. The back was entirely non-distinct, just an imposing white wall. Here we are? Yes, there's a door ahead. Baxter led you away from the car towards a back door you had missed entirely in the shadows. He opened it with little effort and slipped inside. Perplexed, you stood there and stared into the dark void Baxter disappeared into. Right this way. You could kind of see his arm in the doorway, and Baxter motioned for you to follow. You had anticipated being surprised by where he was taking you. I thought he was taking us to a parking lot and we were just gonna dance in the parking lot. But this was way more unusual than even his usual fare. Following inside, you struggled to see anything without the tiny rays of light filtering through the doorway. Baxter still found your hand and began leading you forward. No explanations were offered. Instead, Baxter acted under the assumption that you'd blindly come with him. And he was right. Baxter went ahead with confident steps. You trusted him enough to believe this wasn't a mistake. Wherever the two of you were, he at least knew the pitch-black hallway. He found precisely where to reach to open another door. To the new black void. You caught a faint echo of your own footsteps, stopping by his side. Next to you, the door felt like glass under your fingertips. Baxter lightly squeezed you, and then he let go. Wait here, please. I'll get the lights. There was nothing else to do. Listening closely, you could hear Baxter's steps bounce around the presumed open space as he strolled ahead. He moved further and further away until you heard the loud click of multiple switches being flipped. Several rows of light zapped on in succession. Where the hell are we? The lights flashed to their full brightness and blinded you, shielding your face. You were aware of Baxter moving in your direction. I'm sorry. I should have warned you. Are you alright? Squinting, your blurry sight gradually adjusted. You finally got an idea of where you were, a big, nearly empty room with a shining, tiled floor. It was strange. Something was familiar about the picture, almost like you'd seen this room before. That was it. You had seen it before. Specifically, in the photo Scott and Jude sent before their wedding. This must have been where they practiced with Baxter. Is this your work building? Correct. Baxter revealed the keys hooked around his finger and spun it, his expression impish. If we're being technical, we're long closed for the day. However, I happen to have keys. It's perfect. Are we going to be arrested for breaking and entering, you joke? Are you kidding? You were shocked. Baxter, you can't do that, you scolded. Wow. You had no idea what to say. Are we going to get arrested for breaking and entering? No, not at all. I'm allowed to visit at any time, even when customers are not. What if I need access to a file in the office? Weddings, as you know, are a juggling act of many moving pieces. Difficulty would only increase if the work fell exclusively within a window of set hours. Yeah. A single wedding was chaotic enough, but planning them as a career could easily be more than a full-time job, because it is a full-time job. He'd have to be ready to tackle needs and demands whenever they hit. Exactly. The higher powers that be understood, we do what we must. We come and go from the building as I please. I can come and go from the building as I please. Though bringing a date here is not entirely an expected reason for coming. Personally, I'd say this still counts as job adjacent. You're helping me maintain my professional dancing form. The owners are highly understanding. And excuses are only necessary if we're caught, which might not even happen. Mischief twinkled in his eyes. He seemed so certain in his abilities that you had to believe Baxter would never be taken to task for the stunt. There was no way you could predict the situation if you tried. Baxter Ward was an enigma. Well, he surprised me. One moment, please. Holding up a single digit, Baxter pointedly dipped his head and then went to the counter by the far wall. He was messing with something there, but you couldn't tell what it was until you walked to the center of the room. Soon you'd be dancing together. Soon you and him could share the floor for your own dancing. You didn't want to dance yourself. Baxter could demonstrate the steps. Soon you and him could share the floor for your own dancing. Soon you'd dance together. Already lost in thought and imagining the song, you tapped your foot and spun on your toes. A few snickers bubbled up from the silliness. Your moves were sharper than ever. Today, you were dusting off your skills. There was no telling how well you'd be able to keep up pace with him. I'm dusting my skills off today. Admittedly, you hadn't done this for quite a while. A few things might be hard, you imagined, but overall, you remained confident in your own abilities. Music began playing. Baxter promptly returned to the center of the room. He hummed along with the melody. Baxter placed a hand across his heart. As you know, I enjoy a nice waltz around the room. However, I am not a one-trick pony, and I'm not selfish enough to only want to stick with my expertise. Is there any particular style you prefer? I could teach you anything you have in mind to the best of my ability, or vice versa if you know better. I'm open to experimentation. Honestly, I'd love a waltz. Let's waltz, and then we can twerk. Baxter's face brightened gloriously. I'd love nothing more. With that, Baxter showed you a remote you'd never seen before. The question bounced off on the tip of your tongue, and your gaze trailed towards the back of the room, and the answer struck. It was obvious once you realized the sound system was hidden behind the counter, and you must have grabbed the remote when he was there. Baxter swapped through the music tracks until he found something that was sufficiently waltz-esque. Then he slipped the remote into his jacket pocket. Aww, we're holding hands. Look, obviously, to waltz you need to hold hands, but still. Like a proper gentleman, Baxter extended his hand to you, and you gladly took it. Baxter gradually tightened his grip. He was searching for a sign that you were ready to begin. You answered him with a happy nod, and he pulled you up to his chest. You knew enough to tell how it was entirely unnecessary to begin with your bodies brushing against each other. But you also knew that you wouldn't want anything different. The waltz was smooth and romantic, as if the dancers were floating air. It wasn't hard to understand why Baxter loved it so much. He moved elegantly and brought you along every step of the way. Since there were only two of you, the room size worked beautifully. A waltz as a travel dance required space in order to be performed comfortably. You put on an unforgettable showcase, a toe-stepping, silly mess of dance, yet Baxter didn't appear to mind one bit. While you lacked Baxter's natural command and elegance, he still danced with you as if this night was his greatest privilege. Then the music shifted. The conclusion of the current song was on the horizon, and you knew this was going to be the conclusion. The dance ended with Baxter dipping you, then concluded with you dipping when you dipped Baxter. Baxter spun you out just as long as the song ended, but before the song ended, you spun Baxter out. As the song came to an end, you both come together. It was as if the melody was pushing you towards one another. He moved closer, and so did you. With the final notes, you were standing mere inches apart. Your eyes stayed locked on one another. Your breath was heavy. The music's end left you both suspended in silence. Baxter's gaze was distracting enough that you almost missed when he cupped your face. Oh? His thumb tenderly brushed your cheek. His skin felt electrified under his touch. Your skin felt electrified under his touch. He moved slowly at first, but then his lips rapturously pressed into yours. He's kissing me. Sliding your arms past his neck, you curled your fingers in his hair and deepened the kiss. This is unprofessional in your work building, but I'm loving it. You hoped that you would have the chance to witness Baxter this happy again a million times more. You're so wonderful. That was fun. You still got it. Next to the dance, my good sir. You try to catch your breath. You still got it. Your voice was cheerful with a frightful smirk on his face. Baxter readjusted his collar. I do, don't I? You danced beautifully, Princeton. You knew it was time to let go of Baxter, but you really didn't want to, and he also struggled with the same dilemma. It didn't help that the room felt strangely different now that the music was off. There was so much calm after a storm, even if it was the good kind of storm. Sliding backwards, Baxter made sure there was enough room and then gave you a grand bow. He stared up at you from between the strands of bangs before standing straight again. Might I get you a drink after so much exertion? Huh? Scratching the top of your head, you weren't sure how Baxter was going to accomplish that. He answered your confusion with a smirk. There's a water cooler right at the back. He didn't even need to check. Baxter nudged his head towards something past his shoulder. Leaning, you peeked past him and spotted it instantly. Oh. Yeah, water would be great. You accepted it with a nod. You shrugged, you shook your head. I'm alright. Water would be great, babes. His lips pressed into a sweet smile, and then Baxter turned on his heels. 2 waters coming up. Baxter stomped you to the water cooler and fetched you both something to drink. A minute later, he passed you a full cup of water. He tilted his head back to swallow a large sip. He brought the cup down again, and he combed his soup of bangs to the side of his head. Now we can continue standing here, but there's something better we can rest our feet. Would you care to follow me? Why not? Wonderful. Baxter casually dropped the remote off at the counter and shut down the music system completely. Leaning against the glass door, you waited for him to finish. Then you left the room behind and traveled down a different hallway. Taking your drinks for your trip, Baxter brought you to a much more familiar spot. He swung the door open with extra confidence. Welcome back to my office, Princeton. Make yourself at home. Oh, is something wrong? No, it's just that I kind of thought I'd never see this place again. Ah, that was certainly a possibility. Baxter flicked a hand as he walked and talked. He went straight for the couch and settled down on it. He immediately got comfortable by stretching his legs and slinging his arms along the back. The whole time his gaze rested on you. I'm gonna sit next to him. Lowering into the cushion, you situated Baxter's arm under your head. It was nice. Baxter cozied closer to your side, and he hummed happily as he did it too. The reestablishment of warmth between the two of you gave you goosebumps. I'd never get to do this. Relaxing even further, Baxter idly ran his free hand along the purple fabric. How strange, being on this side of the room. Yeah. So you volunteer. Hey, if you get married, do you think you would plan it yourself or hire a different planner? If you could design your ideal wedding, what would it be? I've been wondering, did you just design this office? You appreciate his comfortable. I don't care about him in this office. I want to know, would he hire himself or get a different planner? I expected he'd need at least a second to think, or at least to react in the sudden inquiry. However, Baxter shot out an instant response. Unless someone was intending to wed my cold, dead body, no other planner would have a say in my own wedding. Unblinking, you absorbed the dramatic answer, and then erupted into a fit of laughter. Baxter had delivered it so seriously, and your reaction softened his expression. I'm happy you found that so amusing. He crossed his legs and gradually lost his polite demeanor for a coy one. Though, with that said, why would you ask me, Princeton? Who knows? Because maybe we're in the wedding planning office. Wise guy. Well, because we're in your office, where you plan weddings. Oh, for future reference. Looking away, you didn't answer. You merely shrugged. For future reference. Baxter's entire demeanor brightened. He was halfway ready to grab a notepad and start jotting down the details. Is that so? Do you have anything else in mind you wish to ask? For future reference, of course. Not right now, no. Fine. Keep me up to date. Baxter let you off the hook completely. The spark in his expression didn't fade, though. Baxter plucked the cup he brought with him off the table and took another sip. Slowly he lowered it and let out a wistful sigh. Thanks for indulging me tonight, Princeton. This has been the most fun I've had in I don't know how long. I do know that I want to dance again outside of work. For myself. I'm sorry for brushing you off about this topic before. In a way, I fell out of love with that passion. It became tedious and unsatisfying to do it with complete strangers, and I didn't have enough hours in the day to dedicate to a long-term competitive partner any longer. But perhaps I should have tried harder not to give it up entirely. Baxter leaned an elbow on the armchair and rested his cheek against his knuckles. His mouth twitched. How embarrassing. Even my choice of hobby revolved around having a serious and understanding relationship with someone else. The precise matter I've had a long time struggle to obtain. I don't think my 8-year-old self was trying to make a statement when he decided this activity was worth pursuing, but still, it's quite fitting, I miss being able to dance with you. You're a born dancer, Baxter. I'm happy to dance with you whenever I'm in the area. Yeah, you should pursue hobbies as an adult. You smiled sympathetically. Yeah, you should pursue hobbies as an adult. Easier said than done. I'm definitely willing to try now. Good. It'd be a waste to let yourself forget how fun this is. I appreciate it. It's certainly much better having someone else share in the delight of my hobby with me. After all that, you were completely at ease together with Baxter. You felt an unshakable thrill being alone with him in the middle of the night. Completely at ease. Being pressed against him, you took in Baxter's cologne with every deep breath. Since it could have a long-lasting impact on someone's mind, they lingered in ways different, but no less powerful than sights or sounds. And right then, that sense was rousing in old memories of Baxter. wrapping his shirt around your shoulders to keep out the evening breeze. It was similar, but not the same. Just like the situation you found yourself in was different from the scene you were reflecting on. Before, Baxter's cologne was almost old-fashioned in how perfumed and heavy the smell was. These floral notes were fresher, sharper, and there was an undercut of spice, a mature scent for a gentleman of sorts. For a time, you rested on the couch, saying nothing and listening only to the beat of your lover's heart. But when the idea of relaxing crossed into the risk of falling asleep while breaking and entering, you and Baxter decided to sit up properly again. It wasn't long before you both finished the last drops of your water and tossed the paper cups into the office trash bin. Tiredly rubbing his shoulder, Baxter released a satisfying breath. We should go. If we linger too much longer, I'm afraid operating hours might begin while we're here. That would be difficult to explain. Oh, yeah. Good idea. Baxter rose to his feast. Baxter rose to his feet and brushed off any lint that might have gotten on his suit jacket. He nudged his head towards the door. You moved to follow. He brought you down the same path. Baxter and you turned the lights off as you went along. Once you reached the parking lot, you waited for Baxter to lock the building. After a day delightful enough to rival the wedding itself, you and Baxter finally returned home. You slipped quietly through the lobby. Not quite tiptoeing, your feet were too sore and too heavy for that. Goosebumps lingered on your skin from the rush of your adventure, but exhaustion crept closer and closer as you neared the last destination of the day. By the time Baxter was closing his apartment door behind you, you were ready to collapse at the finish line. It felt good to be back. Well, I must thank you for a truly incredible time, Princeton. I'll keep you only for a moment longer. Your drooping eyes lifted. He had more up his sleeve? Huh? Why? The sign of interest was awfully encouraging for Baxter. His smile pulled too wide to be considered purely polite. There is something to consider. On the one hand, I do have a pleasantly fully furnished guest room. It's sensible to make use of it. But on the other... Baxter literally lifted a hand up in your general direction. Naturally, the motion was completely nonchalant. Nothing unusual happening here. The master bedroom is frankly superior. I would say it'd be impolite to not even offer the space to my boyfriend. You narrowed your gaze again, but it wasn't out of sleepiness. The proposition required a sufficiently lidded look. You're asking me to spend the night with you? Not the oh yes. Exactly. How considerate of you. Okay. Well, it'd be rude to reject your hospitality. If you're sure it's alright, I'll pass this time. Not me rejecting him. You nodded to accept. It was quite an offer. You shook your head. You never knew what to expect from that guy. Well, it'd be rude to reject your hospitality. Baxter's coy smile split into a giddy grin, like cracking a stone to see a beautiful geode inside. And then feel free to join me after you've changed. I'll be waiting. Thanks. See you in a minute. Briefly, the two departed ways. You got ready to sleep as quickly as you could, with your tired bones resisting the effort of even changing clothes. After you won the battle against zippers and buttons, you gathered a few necessities to migrate over to your new room. He'd left the door mostly open, so you went through it without knocking. Being there definitely felt different from your first venture inside, even if it looked the same. Specifically, you couldn't help noticing the mass of clothes haphazardly piled on the side table. Girl, let him live. Let him live. There you are. Welcome. Hi, so is that from the morning of the wedding? That was the last time you'd gotten to enter Baxter's room, you realized. Which is crazy, because if it was from the morning of the wedding, and he said he'd get to it later, and we've been out all day, you would think you would mind your fucking business. Was the last time you'd gotten to enter Baxter's room, you realized? Yes. There was no hesitation. You snorted at how straightforward he was, most of the time with certain things. I'll get to reorganizing another day, after you leave. Or perhaps I'll be inspired to do it before then, if I have the time. We'll see. I'm uncommitted. Of course, usually I wouldn't show my room in such a state this early in the relationship, or ever really, but you've seen far worse from me, including being there to witness me making this very mess. Baxter busied himself by turning down the blankets for both of you. After 5 years, too late. It's 5 years too late for me to fool you into thinking I'm flawlessly put together, and I wanted you to stay with me tonight. He chuckled at himself while getting on top of the mattress. You have a very nice room. It's pretty monochrome in here, Baxter. You have a very nice room. Also, a funny one. Where's the color? What do you mean? There's color right there and right there. I'll give you credit for having some pops of color. The third blanket matches the rug in your office. It's nice to hear. I'll give him some credit. Really, you're too kind. You followed Baxter into bed, certain that you were welcome there. Baxter had luscious feather pillows that squished. This bed's kind of small. That squished in around your head when you laid. It was like getting a hug, but for your cheeks. Your boyfriend's face was partially obscured by a fluffy pillow, too. He had to inch from the center of the puffball to the edge so he could see better. You turned on your side to face him. Baxter's sighing breath was near enough to flare your eyelashes. As tempting as it is to stay up for the remaining half of the night, I knew we shouldn't. Rest is important, and very needed in particular. Good night, Princeton. You too, Baxter. He had a convenient switch he could hit from bed to shut off all the lights in the room. But that was still one piece missing before Baxter was officially settled in. You felt his arms wrapping around you. Then Baxter whispered one last thought. I'm glad you're here. I am too. It took you long enough to say that. I never want to be anywhere else. I'll be here as long as I can. Then you held him back. You tucked yourself into his shoulder, gave him a good nice kiss on the lips, you gave him a good night kiss on the nose, you sank deeper into the mattress. Tuck yourself into his shoulder. Little spoon. You nestled against Baxter's neck. His silk pajamas left luxuriously soft against your skin, and his pulse was steady. He was just darling. Ah, how lovely. Girl, go to sleep. Go to sleep. Baxter murmured against your ear in dreamy bliss. As incredible as outright unbelievable as it was to be in Baxter's embrace for the night, the thrill you had couldn't compare to the pure comfort it brought you. You had gone through so much to be where you were. For years you thought anything like it could never happen. You might not have given up trying, but you had no real hope it would come to anything. Now that it was okay for you and for him, you could relax in a wholly complete sense. Baxter felt that same relief. Neither of you needed further words of reassurance. The warmth between you was enough. Your half-conscious mind swam through a moving tide of memories of the current day and the entire Wedding Planet excursion. The mental water was warm, relaxing. You smiled and cast one more glance at the man you were in bed with before your eyes could no longer stay open. Putting on a fantastic event for Jude and Scott? Seeing friends and family? Starting a new relationship? That boyfriend being Baxter Ward? Even though your time in Prison Vista and everywhere beyond and in between would come to an end soon, it could not possibly have gone better. Without even realizing it, you drifted into pleasant dreams. I thought it would end right there, but no. Then, when the morning arrived, you saw him there. He hadn't vanished. He didn't leave you behind. Baxter remained fast asleep beside you, exactly as you knew he would be. The sheets surrounding you were full of spiced floral scent Baxter wore as a cologne. It was so classy, a perfect match to his normal demeanor, the public-facing part of him. Here, something that sharp didn't fit at all. Baxter was entirely graceless when he slept, with his face crushed into the pillow and his hair having lost its characteristic swoop. No one was a flawless paragon of poise. It was intentional and took effort. Morning Baxter was always a good reminder of that. You could write a list of your frustrations with Baxter wore. Secretly being kind of a mess was not on it. You liked that about him. Right when you were able to look at every feature up close, his sharp manicured eyebrows and equally pointed nose, the mole on his neck, of course, and at tippy top of his head, if you squinted in the sunshine, you could see a gradient in the strands. It was lighter in the roots than the rest of his hair. In the smallest of ways, Baxter had let you see his natural color. It was beautiful. You gently stroked his head. He smiled in his sleep. And when his deep brown eyes did flutter open, he continued to do so. But before saying anything, he yawned, stretched, and rubbed a thin line of drool from his mouth. Baxter also made a valiant attempt to straighten out his bed head. Only then did he determine it was appropriate to greet you. Hello, Princeton. How nice to see you again. Another wonderful day, Yes, it is. Good morning, Baxter. Despite officially being awake now, Baxter cozied up to you again. His hands reestablished the hold they had on you before he attempted to clean up. It was too adorable to do anything about. Besides, you weren't planning on getting up when you normally did either. You'd had many early days of rushing about, and tomorrow would be another. That's when you would need to leave. Today, in the moment, you could afford to linger in bed. You snuggled against your boyfriend in return. With a contented kiss and scattered whispers, Baxter indulged in having you completely to himself. Okay, guys, it's 2 o'clock for me, which means I gotta go. So, we will finish this hopefully next time. Thank you guys so much for being here. Let me switch scenes. Oh my gosh. Thank you guys so much for being here. I truly appreciate it. I might stream this week, like more this week. If I do, it'll probably be Pokemon. If I don't, then I don't. But yeah, so yeah, hope to see you in the stream, if I do stream. What was I gonna say? I hope you have a nice rest of your day, week, month, year, and life. And I hope to see you in the next stream. Bye!